The top socialite of the capital, Serafina, just received a random courier package. Her bestie immediately helped her tear it open. Oh, talk about cheap. She held up a pair of trashy knockoff sneakers with a look of pure, unadulterated disgust. The moment Serafina saw that pile of stuff, her face completely lost its color. She literally collapsed into her chair, her hand holding the papers trembling like a leaf. Her bestie instantly freaked out, asking if she was okay. Did this garbage burn your eyes? I will have the assistant throw it in the incinerator right now. Serafina stared at the pile, her eyes turning red, as she warned her not to throw it away. He found out, she whispered. He doesn't want me. She could never bring herself to tell her flashy bestie the truth that this junk was actually every single gift she had given her boyfriend over the last 3 years. The most expensive item in that whole pile? Just a basic bottle of men's cologne. And spoiler alert, it was actually a free sample she grabbed while buying high-end luxury goods for her precious little brother. For 3 long years, she hid her insanely wealthy heiress status just to date me, living this totally bizarre double life. Now watch how crazy this gets around me. She always pretended to be completely broke, but when I wasn't there, she would casually drop tens of thousands of dollars on a single meal. She literally watched me grind through 2 exhausting jobs to pay off her fake debts, eating $1 noodles and hauling 50-pound boxes. It is not like she never thought about confessing, letting me step right into a world of ultimate luxury and wealth. But every single time the words reached her lips, she chickened out. What if my feelings for her suddenly changed because of money? Or what if I turned into some gold-digging leech, clinging to her wealth forever? So she kept dragging out the lie. Until today. That was when I stood in the mall, watching some young guy pick out different designer clothes, piece by piece, while Serafina patiently helped him. I honestly never knew she had the patience to even walk through a mall. Before today, she never bought a single thing from these stores, only ever staring from the outside. I knew this place was ridiculously expensive, but sometimes I wanted to just wander inside and look around. Not to buy anything, just to dream. But I was too timid, terrified people would judge my empty pockets. Later on, when her fake job supposedly started paying well, I suggested visiting a few times, but the second I brought it up, she would always quickly change the subject. Over time, I just accepted that she simply hated high-end malls. But today, a friend asked me to swing by this exact mall to grab his watch from a repair shop. I had just picked it up and turned around, only to run right into Serafina and that same guy. Her delicate hands were carefully and eagerly picking through the designer clothes. Then, she meticulously unfolded a jacket, gently helping him try it on while standing there with the brightest, happiest smile. Beside me, some random guy looked at his own girlfriend and muttered his annoyance. He told her to look at other couples and complained that she only whined about being tired whenever they went out. Hearing that made me go completely numb. I wanted to grab that kid and scream that the woman beside him was my girlfriend. Instead, I could only stand frozen, staring at Serafina from a distance, desperately praying there was some kind of massive misunderstanding, but there was none. I watched the kid try on a jacket for a second before giving up, grabbing her arm while pouting his lips like a spoiled brat. Look at this, she just swiped her card without blinking. Like some spoiled prince, he walked away with an entire wall of designer clothes. Literally, a whole wall. The salesgirl near me gasped, whispering that an entire wall of clothes was worth nearly $100,000. Must be nice. We had been together for 3 long years, and the absolute most expensive thing she ever bought me was $15. Just recently, my part-time job delayed my paycheck by a few days, leaving my meal card completely empty. I starved for 2 straight days before she even noticed, and I literally had to beg her for $15 to eat. Yet here she was, effortlessly dropping $100,000 on someone else for items she always claimed were flashy and useless. My eyes physically ached from watching them. I couldn't bear to watch this perfect couple anymore. So I walked 2 bus stops away to a cheap farmer's market just to buy basic groceries. Around 7:30 p.m., the sharp sound of her key turning in the lock echoed through our small place. Serafina walked in, flipped on the lights, slipped into her slippers, and froze after 2 steps when she saw me lying silently on the couch, asking why I didn't make a sound. I buried all my breaking thoughts and forced a smile, asking why she was so late since I had been waiting for her forever. Serafina paused, her hands stopping midair as she took off her coat, before casually brushing it off like nothing happened. She claimed her flight was delayed, an excuse that happened all the time now. I suddenly realized those delays were never real. She was just out keeping another man company. I already ate on the plane, she added quickly, sounding incredibly guilty. She was probably worried I would get upset, so she quickly added that she really wanted my homemade soup. According to her, the smell hit her immediately, and it was incredibly fragrant. If this were the past, I would have rushed over instantly to serve it, setting everything up with care. I would have waited with a huge smile, begging for her review. But this time, I did not move an inch. Without even looking up, I simply unzipped her suitcase to organize her dirty laundry, while telling her the soup was in the kitchen. I told her to get a bowl herself and just add some salt. Realizing I was busy packing her bags, she finally headed into the kitchen alone. She clearly knew she could not play me today. Usually, when she drank soup, I would prep heaps of cilantro and green onions, chopping them up with absolute care in a tiny dish for her. But today, all those vegetables sat untouched, still trapped inside their plastic grocery bags. They were not even unpacked, with muddy dirt still clinging to the cilantro. The rich chicken soup was stewed perfectly thick, fragrant, and deep. Too bad the entire thing was completely stone cold. A greasy layer of fat floated right on top, shining under the light. Her appetite vanished in a single second. Since she had already eaten quite a lot today, this greasy sight made her sick. She grabbed a quick glass of water and walked to the bedroom. But wait, sitting right there on the coffee table, she spots a bag. It was a sleek black shopping bag with a famous white luxury logo. The cheapest watch from that brand cost tens of thousands of dollars. Serafina felt her chest tighten as she opened the bag. Inside the black velvet box sat an incredibly exquisite watch. Tiny diamonds on the band threw off a blinding, sparkling glare. I stepped out of the bedroom, still clutching the dirty laundry she had discarded. Seeing her holding my roommate's watch box, I immediately wanted to explain myself. But then, the image of that other guy smiling flashed right through my mind. So I just asked if she liked it, saying it looked pretty cool. Her brow furrowed, and her gaze turned absolutely freezing cold. She did not even bother to ask where it came from. That accusing glare said it all. To her, I did not deserve something so expensive. I tossed the laundry aside, feeling like nothing even mattered anymore. Who cared about that other guy? It did not even matter that she dropped $100,000 on him. How could you just take things from others? She asked, warning that people would look down on me. She demanded I return it immediately because it was too valuable. The look she gave me made me feel like some cheap gold digger who only cared about cash. The classic play the victim routine was exactly what she did right now. I would be looked down upon for that? Yet she had no issue showering her little crush with countless expensive gifts without a single care. If you want the soup, heat it up yourself. I left some other food out for you. It is getting late anyway, and I need to head back to campus to finish some things up. I grabbed the watch back, boxed it, threw on my shoes, and walked out, telling her the watch belonged to my roommate. Clearly, I was terrible at hiding things. Realizing her mistake, Serafina instantly bolted out the door to chase me. She claimed she was just exhausted from traveling, and begged me not to throw a fit. I stayed completely silent. Playing the submissive partner, I quietly let her take my hand and pull me back inside. I did not even take off my shoes this time, just flashed a fake smile. Was she really that exhausted from traveling? Oh, come on, she was actually exhausted from spoiling her secret lover all day. Seeing I was not mad, a relieved Serafina dragged me toward the bedroom, excited to show me a special gift from Paris. I followed her quietly. Earlier, while sorting her things, I had already spotted an expensive luxury box tucked deep inside her bag. It held an exquisite sapphire blue tie, made of incredibly smooth, top-tier luxury silk. I had peeked inside earlier, but did not dare touch it, completely unsure if a gift that expensive was actually meant for me. What if her rich side guy had simply left it behind? But now, I knew for sure it was mine. A high-end item straight from Paris had to cost a pretty penny, right? It seemed my status was finally upgraded, all thanks to her little crush. But then, Serafina pulled a tiny, plain black box from her suitcase and handed it over with a wide smile. Wishing me a happy birthday, she handed over the tiny, simple box. In that moment, my heart went cold. Meanwhile, the real designer box sat exposed at the bottom of her luggage, mockingly showing off its true value. I forced a smile, though it took everything I had. My chest felt pretty bitter as I thanked her, guessing the box held some bottle. It was probably some perfume from the exact designer shop where I bumped into Serafina and that other guy earlier. Should I be grateful she remembered me while hanging out with another guy, or just miserable I didn't get a tie? Serafina noticed I wasn't exactly thrilled, claiming she specifically waited in line for this men's cologne. Telling me French scents are famous, she urged me to try it so she could get a different one next time. I hate cologne. I absolutely can't stand it. She knew that perfectly well, yet she still gave me this bottle, which was literally just a free promotional gift. Stashing the cheap bottle away, I refused to argue with Serafina and insisted on heading back to my college dorm. I had zero plans to stay over. She wanted to walk me out, but I told her to rest up after her long business trip since she had work tomorrow. Luckily, I managed to catch the absolute last bus, making it back to my room just after 10 p.m. It was a 4-man dorm, and all my roommates were still wide awake. Spotting me, Gideon grinned cheekily and asked why I was back, reminding me curfew wasn't until 11 p.m. I asked where else I'd sleep, then handed Dorian his watch and told him to check if it was fine. Dorian opened the bag, gave it a quick look, and casually tossed the watch onto his desk. Then Gideon asked what nice gifts my girl got me from France, so I pulled out the box and handed it over. I set the small paper box down on the desk, then headed out to the balcony to gather up my dry laundry. The impatient Gideon immediately tore the package open, revealing a small glass bottle that smelled faintly of cologne. Silas was completely baffled, asking why she brought him men's cologne when he never even uses the stuff. They couldn't believe she came back from Paris with just cheap cologne. But I confirmed she claimed it was from France. Trading quick looks, Silas and Dorian grabbed the bottle, ripped the wrapping off, and sprayed some. Honestly, the scent was pretty mild, but it definitely wasn't something a guy like me would ever wear. Dorian silently set the bottle down, picked up the box, and flipped it upside down. Now look closely at this box. Right on the bottom was a sticky patch of glue from a peeled-off price tag. With a scowl, Dorian threw the box aside, scoffing that a broke guy like me shouldn't be using fancy things. He warned me to just keep it as a decoration so people wouldn't laugh at me for wearing it. A broke part-timer using cologne? Gideon snapped, defending me and saying his girlfriend bought it, so why are you acting like that? Silas nodded along, fully agreeing that Dorian was seriously crossing the line with his harsh comments. Dorian sneered, saying he was just stating facts, and if you can't afford nice things, don't fake it or people will think you're a gold-digging freeloader. I stared at his mocking expression, but honestly, his sarcastic remarks didn't even bother me anymore. Instead, I finished folding my clothes, sat down with them, and carefully packed the cologne away. Carefully smoothing the tape back down, I knew he was right. I wear $10 shirts, so I don't deserve this. I never use cologne. In fact, I completely avoid using anything with a strong scent. My roommates tried to speak up for me, but I shook my head, knowing Dorian had called me unworthy before. But tonight, his cruel words felt completely true. I stared down at my silent phone. There wasn't a single new text. Serafina hadn't even texted to ask if I made it back to the dorm safely, so during the long ride back, I searched up that designer tie online. It was a high-end luxury piece. And while it wasn't impossibly expensive, it clearly wasn't bought for a guy like me. She most likely bought it for that wealthy kid, and he just forgot to take it with him. I lay down on my bed, placing that cheap cologne box right next to my pillow, staring at its elegant, frosted patterns. The box was quite small, but it looked incredibly high class. Dorian was right. I really was totally unworthy. Serafina could wear elite designer clothes while taking some rich kid shopping. Just think about how incredibly messed up this is. She easily drops $100,000 on another guy, but then changes into a cheap, ordinary uniform just to look broke around me. Apparently, I only deserved to see her dressed up in that cheap uniform. I was only good enough for cheap dates and haggling over pennies at local markets. How could I ever deserve a $1,000 tie? So, how much did this cheap, promotional bottle actually cost? I had no idea, but those painful images from earlier kept flashing behind my eyes. When midnight struck, the clock reset to 24:00. My birthday was completely wiped out. And maybe, Serafina was about to get reset, too. Over on the east side, inside a luxury villa, Serafina finished her shower, feeling totally refreshed. Lying on her mattress, she felt like she was finally home. Shopping with Lysander today definitely showed her how terrifying men could be. Suddenly, a loud knock. Before she could even answer, her door flew wide open. "Hey sis, where did you put that free men's cologne that came with my shopping today?" Lysander, her incredibly handsome younger brother, barged in and immediately started tearing through her suitcase, tossing clothes everywhere as he searched. "Lysander, you are 18. Don't you know you need permission before entering someone's private room?" Serafina was pretty annoyed. But since he was her brother, she kept her cool and only gave him a gentle warning. Lysander totally brushed her off, muttering that once she actually got a husband, he would never dare to invade her personal space like this again. He dug around. Nothing. The only thing he spotted was a black box holding a tie. He asked where his perfume was, positive he packed it right inside her luggage. Serafina watched him trash her luggage with cold eyes, completely unfazed by the total mess. She calmly told him she gave it away. Today was just straight bad luck. Right after landing, her brother discovered she had a boyfriend and immediately dragged her to the mall to drain her bank account. When she finally visited my apartment, she did not even get soup. None. Honestly, she was totally depressed because she had no clue why I was so angry. From the second she arrived, I had not smiled once, stubbornly insisting on heading back to my college dorm room tonight. It was past midnight, and I had not even called her to check in. She had already apologized, though. Meanwhile, Lysander searched the entire luggage but still could not find his perfume. Instead, his hands wrapped around that brand new designer tie. His eyes went wide as he grabbed the tie box in pure shock, asking why her boyfriend's birthday gift was still sitting here. Did she fail to give it to him? Hang on, the family driver saw her walk right inside my apartment building with his own eyes. Plus, the kitchen light was clearly on. Someone was definitely inside. Wait, this makes zero sense. Didn't you say you were staying with him tonight? Why go home? The more Lysander thought, the fishier it got. Watch this, can you actually believe what she ended up doing to him next? You fly back from France, give your boyfriend a cheap sample perfume, and get kicked out of his place? Serafina scoffed. She boasted that I knew she had a soft temper, and she had never yelled at me once. Kicking her out? Not a chance. Besides, she did not even recognize that brand. How would she know it was just a freebie? Sis, you are seriously acting like a heartless villain right now. You fake being broke, let a poor guy take care of you for 3 years, and then give him a cheap sample for his birthday. If I were him, I would have dumped you ages ago. If Lysander had not accidentally checked his sister's phone today, he would have never known she was dating someone. She hid her wealth, let her boyfriend pay, and kept him in the dark. He genuinely believed his sister had no worldly greed, thinking she wanted to build her own company from the ground up. But they were loaded. Sure, avoiding gold diggers makes sense, but keeping this lie going for 3 whole years? Come on, that is just wrong. Treating him like a thief was just wrong, especially since she clearly cared so deeply about him. Lysander could not fathom why she was playing these games. She literally flew back from France, just for his birthday. Yet, terrified of exposing her secret wealth, she arrived late and bought him absolutely nothing. It actually took her brother, forcing her to go to the mall just to grab a decent gift. If his own girlfriend went to France and brought back absolutely nothing, he would dump her right on the spot. How clueless was she? Thinking a random cheap belt from some street stall would actually suffice for her boyfriend. If any girl treated me like that, she would get a piece of my mind. Why are you playing with his heart? He has struggled right beside you for years. Lysander was completely baffled by her behavior. She was never stingy, so why act like a toxic partner now? Serafina snapped back, telling him to butt out. I bought everything you wanted today. If you run your mouth to our parents, I am freezing your credit cards. Flashback to early Saturday morning, when the 4 of us piled onto the bus to head downtown. Turns out, the restaurant Dorian picked was right on the 6th floor of this exact mall, perfectly matching his insanely expensive rich kid taste. While Gideon and the rest of the guys headed off to hunt for sneakers, I slipped away to the same high-end counter where Serafina had taken that other guy before. That cologne she handed me yesterday was from this exact luxury brand. Somehow, I felt a weird surge of pride seeing the spot that made $100,000. Same salesgirl from before too. She greeted me with a warm smile, totally ignoring my cheap beat-up jeans and old canvas sneakers. They had plenty of men's fragrance options on display, but my bottle was nowhere. I did not even know how to describe the scent, and felt pretty awkward. Then Dorian strutted in, completely ignoring my existence. He casually grabbed some high-end clothes, looking quite pleased, and announced, I will take all of these. He threw me a cold, snobbish look, looking right down his nose with absolute disgust. That flashy spending spree felt like a direct slap to my face. The salesgirl smiled politely, offered me a quick apology, and took his items while explaining, I am so sorry, sir. We have not released any new men's scents recently. Are you sure you have the right brand? Dorian scowled. Impossible, he says. I saw it. Black box with a floral logo on the front. The salesgirl paused as realization hit. Oh, sir, the item you are talking about is actually a free gift. Once a member hits 1 million spending points, they get that special bottle of men's cologne completely free. Plus, it is custom blended for local guys and exclusive to this country. You cannot even buy it abroad. As she explained this, she even looked quite proud of the brand. Honestly, no wonder. Check how many points I have on my account right now, Dorian demanded, acting like he just cracked a major case. And honestly, guys, this is where the ugly truth hits me, making my entire body freeze up. My dumb male ego had driven me to this counter, desperately wanting to measure up to that stupid cologne. But the truth is pure humiliation. She traveled all the way to France, came back for my birthday, and just to impress another guy while shopping, she grabbed a free promotional giveaway and slapped a bow on it for my birthday gift, even flat out lying that she imported it from Paris. She could not even be bothered to pick up a real souvenir. In her eyes, I was only worth a cheap promotional freebie. Meanwhile, Dorian kept flirting with the salesgirl while she checked. Man, I am still so far off, my rich buddies are going to laugh at me forever. So embarrassing. Knowing his score was too low, Dorian put on a pretty convincing show of disappointment. Help me check my friend with the last name Lou. How many points does she have? I need to beat her, Dorian probed. Last name Lou, he muttered. Let's see if this broke guy's luck runs out. Her name is Lu Ruyan, Serafina. He spelled out her full name clearly. This snobbish rich kid behavior was pretty flamboyant, but the salesgirl was completely used to it. After all, membership points were not exactly classified secrets. Sharing them with a big spender like Dorian was just good business. Serafina has 1.14 million points right now. Yes, that much. Are you guys hearing this? That massive number is something I could not even dream of. Back home, that buys a luxury house. Years back, she got into a brutal car crash. She was in terrible shape, and we drowned in debt paying her medical bills. During our relationship, she worked part-time to help, while I pulled massive double shifts, literally feeding us both on a single college meal card. Later on, her situation finally improved. Yet behind my back, she was spending over $1 million on luxury items for some other guy. Her shopping spree started 4 years ago. The entire time, I starved myself using my meal card just to support her. She was secretly dropping tens of thousands on other people. My dumb brain finally understood why we never had cash, even after she started her internship. She constantly cried about being broke, never taking me out for a single dinner or shopping trip. Turns out, every single penny went straight to this place. They had been close for a long time. They never stopped talking. Dorian finished checking out, grabbed his luxury bags, and walked off, completely acting like he did not know me. I did not care about his pride and quietly followed him to the lounge area. Once there, Dorian aggressively threw a shopping bag at me. Do not get the wrong idea, he snapped. If they both buy you gifts and I do not, I will look bad. I can easily afford this. I just stared down. Inside was the designer shirt he had been eyeing earlier. Even an absolute amateur like me knew this kind of high-end gear never goes out of style. Do not say I look down on you, he muttered. Those free promo boxes always have stickers on the bottom. Look closely at the glue on that perfume box. Anyone with half a brain can tell it is just a free sample. Dorian sneered, his lips curling with disdain. Only a clueless country boy like you would keep his head down, working himself to death and giving his hard-earned money to a girl who is just playing him for a fool. His blunt words stung, but he was right. I smiled bitterly, realizing he had known all along and deliberately brought up the perfume to save me. He helped me expose Serafina's transaction history, brushing off my gratitude as his charity work for the day. He shrugged it off, acting terrified that I would cling to him to pay him back. I did not mind his attitude at all, quietly pulling a fresh shirt from my bag and slipping it into his. By the time we returned to campus, it was dinner time. We planned to eat out first, but I had a late shift starting at 11 p.m. So, the four of us grabbed a bunch of street vendor snacks right outside the school gates and headed back. I even treated myself to some street food. My heart still ached over Serafina, but knowing this misery was finally ending gave me real hope. I did not have to financially support her anymore. No more worrying why she never spent a single dime on me. From now on, my hard-earned cash was going to make my own life a lot easier. Let Serafina and her precious first love rot in the past. Obsessing over what I lost was never my style. Just having a full stomach made me happy. We approached the west gate near the night market, which was packed with affectionate young couples. And there was Serafina, standing right outside that gate. She watched the four of us walk toward her. I was right in the middle, laughing and chatting excitedly with my roommates. Serafina called out my name. Callahan. Dorian spotted her first. He nudged my shoulder, gesturing toward her before shoving my shopping bags back into my hands and telling me to carry them myself. During the whole encounter, my three friends completely ignored her, acting as if she were a total stranger. Serafina behaved exactly the same way. Every single time I used to invite her to eat with my roommates, she would always make some random excuse. My friends did not need her charity anyway, so pretending to be strangers was honestly the best move. She might be stunningly beautiful, but her behavior was downright shameless. It is not like we were asking for a luxury feast. How much is street food anyway? There are plenty of cheap spots by the East Gate where we always eat. Is spending $20 to treat my roommates to a meal really too expensive for her? As the guys walked away, they noted that despite us dating for so long, Serafina had never treated them once. Dorian sneered, saying maybe she only eats at high-end restaurants and looks down on us. But if she genuinely looks down on us, why on earth is she dating a broke college kid? Why not go find a rich heir? Their awful personalities would match perfectly. He called me an absolute idiot for putting up with it. Accepting such a garbage gift from his girlfriend, any normal guy would have thrown a massive fit and dumped her. Dorian kept mocking me, saying I was incredibly stupid to gladly accept a free promotional sample as an actual gift and not even make a scene about it. Stung by that fake perfume stunt, I had impulsively bought myself some nice clothes earlier that afternoon. These bags in my hands right now? Pure evidence of my sudden defiance. I walked right up to her without a shred of guilt. Seriously, I could not wait to see her reaction. She had swapped her office wear for a casual black hoodie. With her silky black hair, she looked exactly like a sweet student who had not graduated yet. When she saw me, her eyes lit up with a sweet, gentle smile as she reached to take my shopping bags. She asked why I had not answered her calls, claiming she was worried sick. I told her I was hanging out with my friends, but she pouted, warning me not to do that again. She told me to check my phone so she would not stress out about me. Then she took my hand, carrying my shopping bags in her other hand as we walked away. Since I spent today with my friends, she claimed tomorrow was completely reserved for us. She said we had not had a decent meal together since she got back from her trip. When she mentioned that business trip, I froze in my tracks. I flatly told her I had a late-night shift tonight. I cannot go over tonight. Hearing this, Serafina frowned with a touch of annoyance. She demanded to know why I was still working, reminding me that we agreed she would support us. Ever since she got her big promotion, she had completely banned me from working outside of school, claiming she just wanted to protect my college grades. For the past 6 months, I put my entire focus into studying and poured all my free time into painting at the art studio. But honestly, it was just bare minimum survival. The clothes I bought today came entirely from my own savings. I told her the night shift was easy, just 4 hours for $30. That adds up to $900 a month. Honestly, I think the pay is pretty good. In my mind, I kept calculating that huge gap. She asked if my allowance was not enough. Serafina offered to give me more cash, but I quickly refused, saying it was enough to live on. Honestly, among typical college couples, it was pretty rare for the girlfriend to pay for everything. Sure, it was cool she gave me money, but it was strictly enough for cheap meals and buying groceries to cook dinners for her. There was never an extra dime for me to buy anything personal. Since I kept quiet about being broke, Serafina just assumed the cash she gave me was plenty. Indeed, it was fine for a broke college guy, but for an art student, paint and canvas cost a total fortune. Honestly, who can blame him? After seeing her drop $100,000 on another guy over 2 days, his savings were wiped out. He had to work. So today, I called up the 24-hour convenience store where I used to work. They desperately needed a night shift cashier, so I agreed. Tonight was my first night back on duty. Serafina tried to coax me, saying it was dangerous for guys to work nights. She genuinely felt bad about my job. Back then, to support her and pay off her debts, I worked 2 exhausting jobs until I was completely drained. I shook my head. My classes were totally done, and since I had free time, I needed to stay busy. Besides, I already promised the store manager. I could not back out now, especially with recruitment starting in mid-June. Saving money was the only way to look decent for the upcoming job interviews. I used to depend on you, but now I know it is safer to rely on myself. Serafina asked if this was about my roommates. She wondered if I wanted those fancy things too, since she knew guys' trends thanks to her spoiled brother. With just a quick glance, she could easily see the massive gap between me and my wealthy roommates. Worse, the snobbish look in their eyes made her realize how deeply they looked down on me. The shopping bags my 3 roommates carried earlier were in a totally different league than my cheap stuff. In the past, I would have snapped back instantly that I did not care about those designer brands. I was never destined for luxury, so I did not crave it. But this time, I stayed completely silent. Gripping my birthday present tightly, I pulled the simple clothing out and tossed the fancy branded paper bag straight into the garbage. Avoiding a direct answer, I looked up and asked her about the jacket. Mentioning the salesgirl, I told her every guy owns this style of jacket, then asked if she thought it looked good on me. I told her directly there were many things I liked at that mall. My goal was to earn more money to buy them. Serafina just sighed, hating men's clothing. It reminded her of spending all day watching her brother try on outfits. She dismissed it instantly. She told me to put it away, promising to stay tonight, but demanding I quit the job tomorrow. Silence. My heart tasted bitter. There really was a massive difference. You can feel the heartbreak here. For her favorite guy, she has all the patience. For him, just a cold brush off. I wanted to ask if she would reimburse me $100,000, but I stayed silent. It would only destroy my remaining dignity. Besides, Serafina treated me well enough, doing what any good girlfriend should. She told me to rest on a chair. After helping a customer, she saw me zoning out and thought I was confused. Squatting down in front of me, she asked what I was struggling to understand. Her grades were amazing, so whenever I struggled with tough college concepts, she was always there to help me untangle them. I slowly snapped back to reality, staring directly at her beautiful, caring face. The painful question almost burst out of me, but I quickly looked down, terrified she would see my panic. Who was that boy? I wanted to ask, but instead, I quietly asked if we would ever break up. My heart desperately held onto a final sliver of hope. What if that boy really was just her brother? What an idiot. Serafina flicked my nose, laughing at my silly thoughts. She lifted my chin, leaned in, and warned me to never say that again. We are never breaking up. Never. But I really wanted to ask, what about that other guy? Was he truly just a brother? I finally clocked out at 6 a.m. We grabbed some breakfast on our way to the rental, though I was too exhausted to even eat. I crashed onto the bed, gone instantly. Serafina still had some work stuff to handle. By the time she finished and came back to the room, it was already 10 a.m. My eyes were shut tight. I was out cold. She knew yesterday's shopping trip was eating away at me, but she was not quite ready to drop her act just yet. So, she let me keep struggling in poverty a little longer. After all, being poor was nothing new to me. Around 1 p.m., she woke me up because she was hungry but hated eating out. Normally, I would cook for her whenever I was here. But today, I just grabbed my phone to order some takeout instead. I told her I was exhausted. Takeout tonight. She was not happy. She asked why I was still going since we supposedly agreed I would stay. I quickly reminded her that I never actually said yes. She tried to argue that it was way too dangerous at night and she hated me going alone, but I insisted it was fine. I will just use my old way. Wait for sunrise and people before coming back. I brushed it off like it was nothing, sticking to my usual routine. That was exactly how I survived, before I even met her. The area is fully developed now with shops everywhere. No worries. But she absolutely refused. She insisted she was still uncomfortable. With her fancy corporate job, letting her boyfriend do manual labor was a major hit to her pride. But look at this, she suddenly brings up yesterday's clothes, asking if that is what I really wanted. She offered to buy them this afternoon as long as I promised not to go back to work. I froze, shocked that she actually noticed. The bitter feeling inside me grew. I told her I did not want them, and I would not go tonight either. I was just too mentally drained to keep arguing. Besides, the more we talked, the more lies I was bound to uncover. She knew these luxury brands inside and out, yet totally played dumb around me. Seeing me submit like this made her feel quite satisfied. She knew that once I promised, I would definitely stay home. Stroking my face, she softly coaxed me, calling me Callahan and pointing out we had struggled for 2 years, but soon I would be a senior with no classes. She wanted me to move in so she could take care of me and slowly make things up to me. I stayed silent. Move in? She kept going, promising to pick me up next Friday and go look at a car together on Saturday. She even promised to go sketching with me whenever she was free. She had not planned on sharing any of this yet, but since I was acting so incredibly strange today, she panicked and blurted it out to calm me down. Buy a car? I was totally bewildered. Then I figured I was probably just being delusional. If she could easily give a car to me, she could do the exact same thing for someone else. Why even celebrate? Ultimately, this was her decision, not mine. And honestly, who knows? Maybe buying that car was something she had already planned with that other guy. After eating, I called my boss at the convenience store to apologize. He did not say much and easily let me off. I went back to sleep and did not wake up again until 8 p.m. Looking beside me, there was no sign she had even laid down. Even though we shared a bed, our physical intimacy always stopped at basic hugs and kisses. We almost never crossed the line. Sure, there were times after graduation when she came home drunk from work dinners looking for some affection, but nothing real ever happened. I never pushed. She never cared. I finally got up and stepped out of the bedroom. Outside was pitch black, with only the study light casting a faint glow. I grabbed my things, knocked on the door, and told her I was heading back. After waiting for a reply that never came, I slowly pushed the door open. The study was completely empty. A single wall of bookshelves was mostly packed with her old college textbooks, but brace yourselves, her laptop screen was still wide open on the old desk, displaying a luxury car brochure she had just been looking at. The model looked quite elegant and classic, showing a deep, profound black finish. Honestly, I knew absolutely nothing about cars. I only saw the logo of 2 intertwined M's, costing over 8 million. Staring at that massive string of numbers, I felt absolutely numb. I knew nothing about cars, and I definitely did not have 8 million. Then my eyes drifted to a wooden picture frame sitting right next to the laptop. It did not hold a photo of us, but a picture of a completely different man. The vintage photo was yellowed with age, showing a man dressed in a sharp black suit. His hair was immaculately styled, his warm eyes full of determination looking exactly like a dashing, elegant prince. He didn't wear any flashy jewelry, except for a gold watch on his wrist. And honestly, that watch looked pretty familiar. I shrugged it off. I put the photo frame down, stood up, and just walked away. It felt wrong to snoop around her study with Serafina gone. So I scribbled a quick note, left it, and headed out. The hallway sensor light flickered on with a weak yellow glow. I stood there, silently waiting for the elevator to arrive. Wait, listen to this. Her voice was echoing faintly from the back stairs. I couldn't stop myself from creeping closer. Her voice became completely clear. She was telling Lysander she already picked out his car, they would get it next week, and she would hire a personal driver for him. She promised him a brand new one once he started college, calling him her precious little ancestor. She begged him not to be mad anymore, saying she had barely slept the last 2 days. That incredibly doting, sweet voice was a gentleness she had never once shown me. Calling a high school kid her precious ancestor. Such endless patience. Keeping my face completely blank, I numbly stepped inside the elevator and wrote it down to leave. Maybe I was just being petty, but even if that guy was actually her brother, I still didn't even come close to his level. Still, if he was just her brother, why keep it a secret? I started worrying they might not even be blood-related. An $8 million car, I was never meant to sit in it. Having finally calmed Lysander down, Serafina let out a massive sigh of relief. Ever since Lysander thought she was mistreating her boyfriend, he had given her nothing but attitude. Then, he read some trashy romance novel about a tragic, abusive relationship. He immediately cast her as the villain, despising her even more. He literally pointed fingers at her, calling her a total scumbag. Drama-prone teenage boys were such a massive headache. Callahan was so much easier. He had his own goals and ambitions, and never bothered her with nonsense. Back at the apartment, she spotted the brief note I had left on the table. Since I had classes tomorrow, I went back to campus early. Serafina simply nodded and tossed my note away. A boyfriend should be this sensible and obedient. She never had to baby him, and she did not have to act as his personal chauffeur. That gave her plenty of free time to handle real business. She headed into her study to pack. She dialed my number, but when I didn't answer, she just left a voice note on WeChat. She asked why I hadn't waited for her return, reminding me to stay safe. Then, she changed. Stepping out, she was no longer playing the part of a miserable corporate slave. Now, she was the powerhouse general manager of the city's prestigious Sterling Group. The ultimate heiress. The eldest young lady. Once back at university, I messaged her to let her know. Meanwhile, Serafina was already pulling up to an exclusive private club. We texted goodnight, and then watch this. She turned off her cheap phone, grabbed her high-end model, and walked into the club. It was just past midnight. Later, her personal chauffeur drove her to a massive luxury flat near the office. Dim sconces cast a faint yellow glow. She had been drinking at a business dinner, feeling a bit dizzy as she slowly made her way upstairs. This place was nothing like our rundown rental. This was Yiyun Academy, an ultra-luxurious, modern high-end complex. She had actually kept several elite units for herself here, along with a fleet of high-end sports cars in the garage. She rarely ever visited that cramped old rental apartment unless I specifically begged her to go. This was her real home. Stumbling into the bedroom with zero energy to even wash up, she collapsed onto the bed and closed her eyes. For some reason, she suddenly craved some warm soup. But the housekeeper she hired could never quite replicate that homemade taste. Even using the exact same ingredients and process, the maid's version was always somehow missing that special flavor. In her half-asleep state, the memory of me holding those heavy grocery bags flashed before her eyes. Suddenly, Serafina was wide awake. She sat up, heading straight to the master bathroom to wash up. Stepping out, she realized I wasn't around to fetch her pajamas. With a sigh, she headed into her massive walk-in closet. This penthouse was absolutely massive. Back when we first started dating on campus, she had not even bothered to manage it. The closet was insane. Her wardrobe spanned from cheap daily clothes to custom-made, limited edition business suits, a mind-blowing leap in value. The pure variety was stunning. Usually, she would finish work, come here to dress down in cheap clothes, and then head over to see me. Now, she placed her limited edition watch inside a glass display. Resting in the velvet box right next to it was the matching men's version. Unlike her subtle, low-key timepiece, the men's version was screaming with pure, unadulterated luxury. The gold hands and markers on the dial looked like twinkling stars. Pure magic. Glowing so damn bright you simply couldn't look away. Both the sleek design and outrageous price met the absolute highest standards of elite luxury items. Serafina picked up the heavy timepiece, turning it over in her hands. Absolutely gorgeous. Wearing this would make any man look incredibly elegant. Naturally, the first thing she pictured was my own wrist, so she bought this exact luxury model just for me. This one had an extra zero compared to the cheap watch she got Lysander. That clueless boy knew absolutely nothing about designer brands anyway. She planned to lie, claiming she found it online for $4.99 with free shipping, and I'd totally believe her. But get this, that watch never actually made it onto my wrist. Since we started dating, she strictly limited what I could spend on her. Remembering how Lysander called her a total cheapskate, Serafina just smiled mockingly to herself. She snapped the leather box shut, walked over to a hidden safe inside her closet, and unlocked it. Inside? Pure luxury. Every single accessory cost a complete fortune. Without hesitation, Serafina tossed the watch inside. Locked it. Then, she walked slowly over to her quiet study. Sitting right there on her desk was an old photograph identical to the one in my rundown apartment. But this was the original. Serafina gently traced the antique gold watch on the man's wrist in the picture, her grandfather, the person who actually raised her. As a kid, her parents were too busy building their empire, so she stayed with her grandfather. In her memories, he always wore it. Constantly. Telling her sweet stories about her grandmother. He always said they were dirt poor back then, even selling his own farmland just to support her family. Eventually, her grandmother spent her entire life savings to buy him this gold watch. Too soon, she passed away, leaving him to spend quiet afternoons staring at the watch, softly whispering her name over and over. He never cared about rebuilding their wealth. His only real regret was that she had left him far too soon. Serafina deeply craved that kind of pure love, becoming completely obsessed. Then, her beloved grandfather fell incredibly ill. She accidentally broke his precious watch. Terrified he would find out, she secretly rushed to get it repaired. But the exact moment it was fixed, devastating news arrived about his failing condition. Clutching the watch, she sped down a narrow alley, crashed straight into a brick wall, and fell into a month-long coma. In the end, she never got to say goodbye. It was gone. The irreplaceable watch was completely lost. She couldn't comfort him in his final moments, and she even missed his entire funeral. Years later, she checked the security footage from the hospital that saved her, only to discover I was the one who took it. She tracked me down, dropping subtle hints to ask about the watch while I acted completely clueless. Yet, as we spent time together, she genuinely fell for me. Giving me one final chance, she offered me $10,000. Pure bait. She hoped I'd return it. Instead, I avoided the topic entirely and sent every cent to my younger brother living out in the countryside. Serafina felt deeply disappointed, and yet, she just couldn't extinguish that tiny spark of hope inside her heart. So, a romance meant to pamper me turned into a harsh reality of suffering. 3 years. That's how long we lived like this. I worked tirelessly to prove I wasn't greedy, while her feelings for me grew way past a simple crush. You can see the tragic hurdle here. She wanted a future together, but she could never look past that missing watch. She would give her boyfriend the entire world, but right now, I just wasn't qualified. Suddenly, a loud phone call jolted me awake. I checked the time. It was 5 a.m. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen, but I immediately recognized it as my stepbrother Finnegan's number from back home. Extremely annoyed at being woken up this early, I declined it. Again. The persistent caller tried once more. Rejecting it 3 times finally killed my sleepiness, but the phone just wouldn't stop buzzing. Worried I would wake my roommates, I slipped out to the hallway and finally answered, demanding if Finnegan was done. I told him we were finished. No connection. We hadn't spoken in 3 years, so this sudden call meant trouble. A hospital representative spoke up, explaining that my brother was brutally beaten by some thugs last night. Some kind passerby found him collapsed on the side of the road early this morning and rushed him straight to the emergency room. His physical condition is pretty complicated right now, so please get over here as fast as you can. Hearing that cold, professional nurse explain that Finnegan's state was pretty grim, I simply couldn't ignore him. I threw some clothes on and rushed out. Because it was way too early for trains, I had to endure a long-distance bus ride for 4 solid hours. Arriving at the clinic, I saw Finnegan's face was so heavily swollen it was almost completely unrecognizable. They put him in a shared ward, hooked up to an IV, still completely unconscious. Then a nurse walked up. "Are you his guardian?" She glared right at me, scolding with anger. "What kind of brother are you, leaving him all night without even checking on him? You did not even answer your phone." She was clearly the one who called earlier, venting all her morning anger directly at me. I apologized, mumbling I was busy. "Busy with what?" she snapped. "What could be more important than your own flesh and blood?" The kid barely had a breath left when they brought him in. She told me to find his doctor immediately to discuss treatment. She clearly despised me, though hearing the word busy was pretty normal in a hospital. Once she finished venting her anger, she ordered me to go locate the attending physician right away. The middle-aged doctor stood there, holding Finnegan's x-rays, showing 3 broken ribs, a fractured left forearm, and a broken right leg. He warned me we could not rule out internal organ damage yet, so I needed to pay the fees before they did more detailed tests. Once the paperwork was settled, Finnegan finally opened his eyes. I helped calm him down, then stepped out to grab some food. "Now, let's check in on Serafina." She slept past dawn, only waking up when it was already late afternoon. "We had a date today." She jumped out of bed, threw on some clothes, and rushed right out. She wanted a new car. Something that matched her fancy executive status and made her daily commute way easier. Honestly, she had suffered enough squeezing onto crowded buses with me. She completely refused to deal with packed subways anymore. She already picked out the exact ride. It was only $20,000, a reasonable, compact model, perfect for anyone. She was just waiting to take me tomorrow to choose the color. I had a driver's license, but never actually drove. In a couple of years, she promised to buy me a much better one. Arriving at the university main gate, she finally called my phone. "Callahan, I am at the school gate. Are you coming out yet?" On the other end, I was busy skimming foam off a boiling pot of pork bone soup, suddenly realizing we had agreed to look at cars tomorrow. I wanted to tell her about Finnegan's State, but then I stopped myself, remembering she absolutely despised my brother. I had to quickly spin a lie. I claimed I had to cover a class tomorrow, and could not go. Serafina was pretty upset, asking why I was working when we agreed I would stop. Well, my mind blanked under pressure, so I just made up another story on the spot. I lied that Silas got a weekend tutoring gig but had an emergency, so he desperately needed me to cover a single session. Hearing that I was genuinely busy and could not come, Serafina figured it was not a huge deal. At worst, she would drag Lysander along tomorrow to choose a color. She told me she would head home first and buy the car later. They would go car shopping whenever I was free. Serafina was totally used to my busy part-time schedule constantly getting in the way. Her younger brother Lysander had the day off tomorrow, so since I was unavailable, Serafina just headed straight back home. She made it back just in time for dinner, where the family of 4 gathered for a warm reunion meal. At the table, Mr. Sterling was absolutely ecstatic, even bringing out a rare bottle of wine he had saved for years to celebrate. Mrs. Sterling, matching his festive mood, personally cooked up several special dishes to pair with the wine. Serafina stood up to pour her dad a glass, offering a warm toast. They had not had a real chat since he handed the French branch over to her. Since he was finally free tonight, she figured she would bring up some business. She planned to stay at headquarters rather than heading overseas for her studies. "You have been at the company for 2.5 years, and the executives love you. This period is crucial, so do not get complacent. Keep building experience for a few more years. Once your brother heads off to college and things settle down, we will hand you full control. Then your mom and I can finally travel," Mr. Sterling added, clinking his glass with hers. "But while you are busy with work, do not neglect your personal life. If you meet a decent guy you like, put some real effort into pursuing him. Your mother and I are pretty open-minded. As long as he makes you happy, we will accept him." Mrs. Sterling nodded right along, adding that she ran into Uncle Lee and his son while out for tea a few days ago. The boy is currently a junior majoring in oil painting at the local university. She literally offers to arrange a cozy family dinner for them to meet, but honestly, you and I can already tell Serafina is absolutely dying to escape this awkward blind date setup. "Mom, do not start setting up blind dates for my sister. She literally already has a boyfriend. They have been dating for almost 3 years." Lysander spoke up fast to protect his sister, completely unaware he just threw her straight under the bus. Serafina could only shoot him a murderous glare. Spending $100,000 on him the other day was a complete waste. He could not even keep his mouth shut for 2 days before selling her out. Lysander literally stuck his tongue out at her because Mom was actively trying to arrange a blind date. He was just trying to help. Hearing that her daughter had a boyfriend completely piqued Mrs. Sterling's interest. Mr. Sterling pretended to sip his wine but practically perked his ears up to eavesdrop, asking if she really had a boyfriend. Why had she not brought him home to meet them yet, and why hide it? They were not strict parents who would judge a guy's family background. She admitted it. Serafina hummed, confirming she had a boyfriend. Lysander blurted out that he is studying oil painting at the university and is super nice, but she is keeping secrets. At first, she pretended to be totally broke. Seeing that Serafina was not getting angry, Lysander got way bolder and spilled everything. He argued that in today's world, if a guy is willing to struggle alongside his sister, he must truly love her. After all, Mr. and Mrs. Sterling had struggled together in their youth to build up their current massive business empire. So, parenting their 2 kids was never about strict upper-class rules. On the contrary, as long as a person had decent character, they did not care about social status or wealth. Naturally, what Serafina and her brother valued most in anyone was pure character. Lysander did not know the whole story, but he thought I was a great guy and assumed his parents would absolutely love me. Hearing this, Mr. Sterling shook his head in disapproval while his wife frowned, saying that was not right at all. Sincerity is the most important thing in any relationship, and hiding your wealth to deceive someone is pretty messed up. This is someone you might spend the rest of your life with, so he is going to find out the truth sooner or later anyway. How is he supposed to react to that? Deliberately making him suffer is just cruel. Who wants to feel like they were scammed? With his parents on his side, Lysander was ready to stir up some serious drama. He stuck his tongue out at the blank-faced Serafina, venting all his frustration from the last few days. For his birthday a few days ago, she literally gave him a free promotional gift she got from my shopping spree. Since he is still totally clueless and thinks she is dirt poor, it is just crazy. Mr. Sterling immediately lectured his daughter. Her father told her that if she cannot be honest and keeps building walls between them, they should not even force this relationship. Dragging him down like this is wrong. Serafina quickly defended herself, swearing to her father that she is absolutely sincere about him. Lysander did not buy it. He thought his sister needed a serious lesson. He planned to expose all her little schemes to their parents so they would discipline her and make her treat her boyfriend better. Mrs. Sterling calmed her husband down, saying their daughter is sincere and they should just find a time to bring him over. He could hang out whenever he has free time. Even though she comforted her husband, she still secretly felt their daughter was completely in the wrong here. Deceiving the poor guy was wrong. Serafina simply hummed in quiet agreement. Things were moving way faster than she ever expected. She originally wanted to wait until I returned her watch before introducing me to her family. But now that her annoying little brother blew her cover, she had to speed up her entire timeline. Having achieved his goal, Lysander leaned against his mother, acting like a pampered kid while snacking on fruit. He knew his sister was crazy about her boyfriend, and now he could act like a total hero to his future brother-in-law. Since their daughter came home for dinner and suddenly revealed a boyfriend, Mr. Sterling was so happy he drank 2 extra glasses before his wife finally cut him off. Putting down the glass, she looked at her loving parents and imagined how she and I would live just like this in the future. Serafina's sad mood gradually lifted. Maybe this was not so bad after all. Getting lectured by her father actually put her in a great mood, clearing away the dark shadows weighing on her heart. She completely ditched the idea of the cheap 20 grand car and booked the luxury model she had been eyeing for months. She custom-ordered everything according to my personal taste, picking out the exact options that guys are obsessed with right now. She bought 2 identical cars that only differed in color, one for Lysander and one for me. Perfectly fair. Over the next few days, she needed to find the perfect moment to confess the truth. Once the vehicle arrived, she would give it to me to make things right. I had always been soft-hearted, so as long as she sincerely apologized and promised to treat me well from now on, even if I was pretty upset right now, I would definitely end up forgiving her. The more Serafina thought about it, the sweeter she realized I actually was. I was like a sweet little spark etched into her heart. Once this drama was over, she would take me on trips and do normal couple things. She promised to make up for all the pain I went through over the years. Once I graduated college, she was going to propose. First, we would get engaged, enjoy our own little world for 2 years, and then find the perfect day to get married. She would handle making the money to support us, and she was pretty determined to turn me into a world-famous artist. Heading back, she booked a ride. Serafina suddenly remembered the limited edition cat keychain Lysander bought a few days ago. He told her to give it to me, but she tossed it in a cabinet and forgot about it. She figured she would hang her car keys on it pretty soon. I would absolutely love it, so she spun her Porsche around and headed back to my old apartment. Searching through my wardrobe, she looked for the keychain. I barely had any clothes in there, just a thin little stack. She grabbed it from the bottom shelf, but then she noticed something else. A black velvet bag lay crushed beneath my clothes in the far corner, tied up with red velvet string. Beautiful mandarin ducks were embroidered on the front. The stitchwork was incredibly fine and detailed. She knew this piece instantly. It was her grandfather's old watch bag, the ducks hand-embroidered by her grandmother. Her hand shook. You already know this is a bad sign. She picked it up, already feeling that it was totally empty. Still, holding on to hope, she pulled it open anyway. Only a single piece of paper was left inside, a gold shop sales receipt. I actually sold that precious token her grandmother made her absolute last keepsake of him in this world. Traded it away for just a few $1,000s. Meanwhile, back home, I finally uncovered the truth about Finnegan's situation. The trouble was over their old family house. Ever since his parents passed away, Finnegan lived all by himself. Since I was gone for 3 years, his uncle took over watching him. Eventually, the uncle realized the house belonged to Finnegan. Last year, the uncle's own son was getting ready to start school. Pushed by his greedy wife, the uncle demanded Finnegan sign the property over, but the kid flatly refused. The soft approach completely failed. And knowing the kid was underage and I was away, the uncle simply waited for him to turn 18 to force the deal. But Finnegan still said no. So the uncle paid local thugs to terrorize him, and those guys definitely did not play nice. They terrified the poor kid so badly, he ended up hospitalized. And today, that uncle was waiting right outside the house. I mistook him for some creepy stalker and cracked him with a hammer. Now he is getting stitches in the hospital too. Once his family showed up, they completely lost it on me. I stood zero chance against all of them. I could not even fight back, leaving me looking totally beat up with blood running down my split eye. Cops showed up to break us apart. Since I had hurt the guy, they dragged me in to cooperate. Officer Chen warned me that his aunt is a total nightmare, and making a scene helps no one. I nodded. The whole disaster started because Finnegan's mom owed the uncle $30,000. Now, both sides were hurt. If that greedy family used this excuse to keep making life a living hell, Finnegan would fail his major college entrance exams next month. But $30,000 is not something you can just pull out of nowhere. I definitely did not have that kind of cash. Left alone in the quiet room, I could only wait. My brain kept spinning about that $30,000 and where to find a guarantor. I was not obligated to pay this off at all. Finnegan was 18 and had every right to handle his own house. I did not even have to worry about his big exams. How he lived his life down the road was none of my business. No interfering. But right now, I just had to get out of here. Sitting there, I desperately wanted to see if Serafina would actually support me. The phone rang, then she just clicked decline. I dialed again, declined. I tried once more, and she cut the call instantly. Back and forth. Normally, if she did not pick up, I would never call back. I always worried about interrupting her important business. But today, I had no choice. She was clearly pretty annoyed with me. She snapped asking what I wanted. Her irritated voice cutting through loud, pounding club music. I heard the noise, but acted like I did not. It was more than just her annoyance. This interrogation room was suffocatingly quiet, and I wanted out. I actually went back home on Friday. I had been turning it over in my mind for so long, planning to confess everything that happened over these last few days. So you finally met up with your brother, she said. What do you want from me now? She already knew I went back home. Right then, Serafina felt nothing but pure disgust. I had sold that expensive watch behind her back. I wanted to explain that I was locked up here, unable to leave unless someone came to bail me out. But her obvious hatred made me feel like she was just trying to protect her wallet from me. In my mind, I saw that afternoon again her hanging out with that rich kid, casually dropping $100,000 on him. Call it poor man pride. I never asked who that guy was, even though he acted like a protective brother. Honestly, what was so wrong with spending her first big paycheck on her own little brother? I knew we were not related, and I had no right to ask, but she had promised we would never break up. That promise was my absolute last hope. Gathering my fading courage, I told her I was in some serious trouble. Can you lend me some cash? Just think about those 2 years we spent sharing cheap noodles and free soup, and help me out. I will pay you back, every single cent. How much do you need? She asked with a laugh. But I could hear the deep mockery cutting through her voice. I had heard that crushing tone too many times growing up. We all know where this is heading. Our relationship was a dying tree, ready to crash down. 15,000, I whispered. She laughed and told me I should just go beg on the street. She slammed the phone down. Nothing but a cold, empty dial tone remained in my ear. Strangely, despite those harsh words, I did not feel a single bit of anger. Years of hard work, and absolutely nothing to show for it. My efforts meant nothing. I did not cry. Not one tear. I just pulled my coat tight. It was 1 a.m. Explaining things would have to wait until tomorrow. As I stepped outside, fresh blood started dripping down my face. I wiped my forehead, staining my hand in deep crimson. Suddenly, footsteps approached, and Officer Chen walked inside. Callahan, you are free to go, he said. I nodded quietly and followed him out. Standing there in the freezing lobby was a boy on one leg. With one arm in a heavy cast, he struggled to hold himself up on a crutch, waiting patiently in the cold. Seeing me, his badly bruised face lit up with a massive, joyful smile. Hey bro, I came to get you. I stared at him. That dying family tree was suddenly coming back to life, blooming right before my eyes. The tree planted for Serafina ended up blooming only for my brother, Finnegan. Walking out at 1 a.m., every clinic was closed. Luckily, my head wounds were mostly just surface scratches. I grabbed some water and paper towels, quickly cleaning the dried blood off my forehead. Supporting Finnegan, we hobbled home. Meanwhile, Serafina dragged her childhood friend out for a late drink. Beatrix sat there ignoring her drink, lazily scrolling through videos on her phone to pass the time. He actually sold the watch, Serafina muttered, gulping down her drink to forget the sting of seeing that receipt. Betrayal stung. But Beatrix just shrugged, saying it was just a cheap, broken watch anyway. Is some watch really worth more than a human being? Beatrix thought she was overreacting for nothing. You suspected he sold it weeks ago, Beatrix said. Why throw a massive fit over it now? Lately, Serafina had been acting even stranger than her boyfriend, her mood swinging constantly. She ignored everyone. Honestly, Beatrix was right to suggest she just walk away from him. Rip the bandage off. That way you will not lose your mind every time his face reminds you of that watch. Serafina spoke softly, explaining that Callahan called begging for money. Apparently, Finnegan's mom owed 30 grand to his uncle. That uncle started hunting him down last year, forcing Finnegan to stay on the run. Loan sharks beat the kid half to death, which is why Callahan went home this weekend. I bet his brother cried and begged him. My stupid boyfriend is way too soft and took the whole burden on himself. Beatrix got curious, wondering what insane amount pushed Serafina completely over the edge. How much? 15,000. Beatrix stared at her. Just 15,000? Did you actually give it to him? Lysander spent way more than that on pocket change. The outfits she bought her boyfriend cost nearly as much. And yet Serafina was making a massive deal out of this? Please tell me you did not actually refuse him, because if you did, I feel terrible for him. Serafina simply shook her head and confessed she had refused. If Serafina was not her boss, Beatrix literally wanted to dunk her head under water to snap her out of it. Seriously, your boyfriend asks to borrow a little cash and you tell him no? Do not forget, those toys you bought your brother last week cost over 100 grand. Beatrix was older than her, but this unbelievably petty move made her want to bow down to this level of audacity. I seriously do not get it. You refused to break up over some watch, and for 3 years you have just dragged him along. What are you even trying to achieve with him? Why not just end it cleanly? Who knows? Maybe once you hang out with rich heirs, a guy like Callahan won't look so special. But for 3 years, he has given you his absolute everything. As far as I can tell, this is the first time he has ever asked for anything, and it was only a loan. Borrowing means he plans to pay you back. This is not some casual handout between a couple. That poor guy is suffering, just being with someone as cold as Serafina. My own boyfriend throws a total tantrum if I forget a single holiday gift. You have been together for 3 years, and look at how much money he has saved you. He broke his back working to feed you and support your education so you could actually build a future. Yet now, when he needs a simple loan, you shut him down? Think about the crazy cost of living here. What he spent on your meals over the past 2 years easily tops 15 grand. The more Beatrix argued, the angrier she became. Seriously though, she was acting completely brain dead, and Beatrix was losing her mind just listening to her. As a girl who had struggled from a small town to the city, her bond with Serafina made things easier, but she still knew how harsh life could be. She had seen how cruel people could get, which made a loyal, genuine guy like Callahan incredibly hard to find. Yet, this rich heiress beside her actually thought he was just scheming for her money. Beatrix just shook her head. Class differences really do warp a person's entire mindset completely. I was just so angry right then. Subconsciously, I rejected him, but now I feel absolutely terrible. My worst fears were finally confirmed. I will never get my grandfather's watch back. But I am mostly just disappointed in myself. I just cannot bring myself to end things. In reality, she was deeply regretting her choices. If he had called me just one more time, I would have given him the 15 grand. Surely he would call back if it were urgent. Next time, I will not make things difficult. I will just give it to him, Serafina silently reasoned. Since he has not called back, it must not be that urgent. Then, Beatrix suddenly realized something. She grabbed Serafina by the arm and asked if she had even figured out a way to resolve this mess. Eventually, he will find out you are insanely wealthy, yet you refuse to lend him what amounts to a single bar tab. Can you believe this? She spent 15 grand on a single party, but refused to help her own boyfriend. Serafina was totally speechless. She did not know. A long time ago, seeing how I could barely afford new clothes because of her, she had already started overthinking everything. On one hand, she resented me over the watch, deliberately treating me like trash. On the other hand, she was terrified I would find out the truth. A total dead end. Just break up, Beatrix concluded. After taking care of family matters back home, I finally returned to campus and immediately spotted Serafina. At first, I thought she was waiting for me, but she was actually waiting for Alaric, the handsome campus idol. The two of them left happily together, leaving me to walk back to my dorm completely crushed. Inside, my roommate Dorian was smugly showing off a flashy, brand new pair of sneakers. They matched Alaric's shoes perfectly, just a different color. It was a customized Jimmy Choo release flown in from France, costing over $12,000. As Dorian excitedly flaunted his new kicks, I could only hang my head and smile bitterly. My old canvas shoes only cost $4. The very next day, I headed back to our rented apartment. I tried calling Serafina, but her phone was completely turned off. That's when I noticed an abandoned velvet bag sitting on the coffee table. It was black, beautifully embroidered with a traditional pattern of mandarin ducks playing in the water. Picking it up, I found a gold shop receipt inside, sending a sudden flood of memories rushing back. This was the exact item Serafina had been clutching during our car accident. Wrapped in the receipt was a shining gold watch. Back then, she was unconscious and needed urgent surgery, but my wallet was empty, and I had no way to pay her medical bills. I sold the watch to pay off her hospital bills, but then Serafina transferred away, and I never saw her again. I held onto the bag, hoping I would get the chance to explain everything to her. Unfortunately, I missed the perfect moment. Once we got together, we both became overwhelmingly busy. Eventually, I pushed it to the back of my mind, but now she finally noticed. I quickly grabbed my phone and texted her, asking to meet tomorrow. It was time to explain the truth about that bag. She never replied. And the next day, she stood me up completely. I finally gave up. Maybe she just did not care about me anymore. Who knows? Maybe she was actively avoiding me. Terrified I would ask to borrow money again. Returning to campus, everything looked normal outside the dorms. But just as I went to walk inside, I unexpectedly ran right into Alaric. Suddenly, my vision went completely blurry. I had to brace myself against the wall just to stop. Seeing me stop, he steps forward to ask if I am okay, but is he actually worried? I barely lifted my head, mumbling that it was just low blood sugar. He grabbed 2 candies from his pocket and offered them to me. He bragged that his girlfriend brought these sweets back from France yesterday, and they definitely are not cheap. Apparently, they are incredibly famous over there. Almost impossible to find here. They are delicious, so I should try one. His girlfriend knew he loved them, so she actually drove and waited in a massive line in France just for him. Since they are limited edition, I could not tell if he was praising the candy or just rubbing his perfect relationship in my face. But since he is watching his weight, he only eats 1 a day, so he told me not to be shy and take them. He kept babbling about his happy problems, totally blind to the fact that I could barely even stand. The girlfriend he was talking about was Serafina, right? My head spun. I had a girlfriend too, so why was I treated like this? He did not actually care about me at all. He just shoved the candy into my palm and quickly jogged away. He yelled out that his girl was here, so he had to run. I slumped against the wall, my limbs completely heavy and weak, watching him run straight out of the dorm gates. Under the streetlights, I saw Serafina waiting for him. As they walked away together, I could only stand there, frozen in shock. The very next day, a powerful VIP arrived on campus. She was the wealthy sponsor of our art building. Naturally, the dean and the head of the painting department gave her a grand welcome. Alaric tagged along as the star student, immediately asking if she wanted to grab lunch together. He told her his mom really wanted to catch up, so she smiled and told him to call his mother so they could all eat together. Mrs. Sterling nodded, suggesting they should also invite Serafina since she was completely free today. Just hearing Serafina's name made Alaric blush like crazy. He looked down, shyly mumbling his agreement. As they walked, Mrs. Sterling turned to the dean, mentioning she actually came here to ask for a huge favor. Her husband heard about a brilliant junior in the art department, who was incredibly talented but came from a very poor family. So, he wanted her to meet this struggling student in person. The dean knew she meant Callahan, who consistently ranked first in the entire department every single year. His artwork has incredible flair. Tragically, his parents died right when he started college, leaving him to raise his little brother all on his own. He survived purely on scholarships and exhausting part-time jobs. Right then, the department head opened my studio door, praising me as his absolute best student. Honestly, guys, if not for his crushing poverty, he would easily outshine Alaric in every single way. With her backing, his potential would be completely limitless. Right then, I walked into the room. She was staring intensely at my latest painting. She smiled, mentioning that her wedding anniversary was coming up in just a few days. She wanted to buy it as a special gift, offering me $15,000 for my work. For a broke student, $15,000 was a massive fortune. There was no way I could pass up this life-changing chance. This piece actually captured the exact moment I first met and fell for Serafina. But facing harsh reality, those sweet memories could no longer compete with the money I desperately needed. Mrs. Sterling was incredibly generous, immediately handing over the $15,000. Back at Serafina's family villa, Mrs. Sterling returned home. Her husband immediately asked how that boy turned out. She sat down on the sofa, nodding slowly as she admitted that despite his poor background, he really is a wonderful kid. His eyes show zero greed. Honestly, compared to that Alaric kid, this boy is way stronger. Looks like our daughter's changes lately really are because of him. Mr. Sterling then asks his wife what she honestly thinks of the kid as a potential son-in-law. Callahan is a decent kid, but that doesn't mean he's cut out to marry into a wealthy family like ours. Plus, I saw Serafina getting pretty close with the young master of the Ito family recently. Why not just let her choose for herself? Besides, Callahan still has no idea about Serafina's massive wealth. Let's just wait and see how they act moving forward. I even gave him $15,000 as quick help. Let's test his character before making any final moves. There is still plenty of time. And as it turns out, today is the Sterling's 30th wedding anniversary. Mrs. Sterling personally asked me to deliver a painting and invited me to join the celebration. Rich heirs and heiresses are absolutely everywhere at these things. Stunning luxury cars line the entire hotel front. Outside, Serafina is happily welcoming all the elite guests. Since I am wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans with no invite, just holding a wrapped painting, the staff immediately send me to the service elevator in the back. Right then, Alaric walks up in a sharp black suit and gives Serafina a gentle pat on her shoulder. He greets her warmly, and Serafina just smiles back with a polite nod. Standing there together, they look like the ultimate power couple. A perfect match. They are even wearing matching red outfits, making the crowd whisper. You just know this is going to end badly. Massive crystal chandeliers hang from the 30-foot ceiling, while the elegant guests mingle and show off. Wealthy women brag to each other about their dazzling new jewelry. They debate who got the rarest limited edition dress. I had only ever seen this kind of high-class luxury on TV. But now it is playing out right in front of me. But I am not excited at all. My eyes instantly lock onto Alaric. He is bragging to his wealthy friends, who are asking how he managed to steal Miss Serafina's heart so easily. His buddy is visibly jealous, but Alaric laughs it off, saying she has a boyfriend who is just a normal student at their college. Apparently, they have been together forever. So, this jerk knew about my relationship with her the entire time. It is honestly pathetic. I sit there quietly with my back turned, not even shocked to discover that Serafina is actually filthy rich. Why did she feel the need to keep lying to me? Was she really that terrified I was only after her money? I cannot stand listening to this. We have been so cold to each other lately that our breakup is already a done deal. All we have left is to say goodbye in person. A small, selfish part of me used to think her wealth meant a comfortable life where I would not have to struggle anymore. But realistically, I never cared about her family cash. Right then, another rich kid snorts into his drink and laughs that he knows the real story. Apparently, 3 years ago, she got into a brutal car crash, and this random guy saved her. But get this, while she was passed out, he allegedly stole the gold watch her grandfather left her. The whole group gasps in pure shock. They mock him, calling it unbelievably greedy to save her but steal a watch because he was scared of not getting rewarded. How cheap can you get? The smug kid sneers that the disease of poverty is simply incurable. Suddenly, my entire body goes completely numb. So Serafina actually thinks I stole her watch. But why didn't she just ask me? The rich kid keeps talking. He laughs that this poor loser used some serious mind games to completely brainwash Miss Serafina into losing her mind over him. But too bad for him. Serafina is no fool. Since she knew he was just a gold digger, she purposely acted broke to make him pay for everything. And you want to know how it ended? That poor idiot never got a single dollar from her and wasted years of his life. He was literally just her personal plaything. They tell Alaric to lock this down because she has been treating him incredibly well over the past couple of days. He is basically guaranteed to be the next son-in-law, inheriting a massive fortune, worth hundreds of billions of dollars. I quietly walked down the back steps of the hotel, completely numb. I remember how we used to walk through those crowded night markets together. Once, I wanted a simple mug that cost $16 and got it down to 10. But she called it ugly and dragged me away. For 3 whole years, every single anniversary gift she ever gave me was just some cheap, worthless little trinket. Back then, I just assumed she was struggling. I thought she had massive medical bills and no cash, so I never cared about the cheap gifts. Turns out she was never broke at all. She was just constantly protecting herself and hiding her wealth from me. She chose to hold a grudge over a watch, keeping this silent lie instead of ever talking to me. She let her friends' boyfriends relentlessly mock me. My footsteps kept getting faster and faster. I wanted so badly to run down, find Serafina, and apologize for the watch, but I never cared about her money. But in the end, I kept my mouth shut. Just then, Serafina entered the banquet hall but could not find me anywhere. During this time, she had seriously thought about Beatrix's advice. Break up with me unilaterally, cut all communication, and start seeing other guys. She even purposely left her cheap old phone behind. She did not even realize its battery died. She just went ahead and approached Alaric. He was awesome, sharing my exact artistic vision. Plus, there was absolutely no wealth gap or awkward financial pressure between them. She did not even have to worry about getting caught. Being with him was much more comfortable than with me, and she felt zero maladjustment. But then, the novelty wore off. Get this, when Alaric sat there bragging about afternoon tea and his fancy shopping trips, Serafina suddenly felt incredibly out of place. She realized she would much rather hear me complain about cabbage prices going up by 2 cents, even if it was just a tiny increase. During this brief time, Serafina experienced a totally normal relationship. She bought Alaric expensive gifts and took him to high-class restaurants fitting her wealthy status, driving her luxury sports cars to chauffeur him around. In their free time, they would go to malls or take long walks through gardens. But when Alaric looked at her with those worshipping, puppy dog eyes, Serafina realized this was not the guy she wanted. Her ideal partner needed his own thoughts and strong pride. He shouldn't put her on a pedestal just for a simple gift. Slowly, Alaric became as dull and lifeless as a piece of furniture. To her, only I remained a real, living, breathing human being. If I were rich, throwing cash around and casually swiping black cards, how would I look? Would I look at her with that same worship? My admiration would give her twice the satisfaction. At least, that is what Beatrix had told her. Playing around with other guys behind my back was cheating. Since she already wronged me emotionally, it balanced out the whole watch disaster. From now on, I did not owe her a single thing. We were finally equal. She firmly decided to let that whole watch issue go, promising herself to only treat me well from this moment on. Knowing I was delivering a painting to her parents today, she waited downstairs to catch me. She wanted to confess to me first and beg for my forgiveness. She had even bought me an expensive custom designer suit to dress me up nicely. Today was the day she would officially introduce me to her parents. Serafina wanted the whole world to know I was her boyfriend. She wanted me to know that for her boyfriend, $15,000 was just pocket change to throw away for fun. Sis, what are you spacing out for? It is time to cut the cake. Lysander grabbed the hand of his slightly guilty-looking sister and led her over. Surrounded by cheering family, the four of them cut the cake together. A waiter walked up, and Mrs. Sterling proudly presented the painting to her husband. It showed all four family members. You can imagine her panic. She realized I had just been here. She had watched me paint this masterpiece brushstroke by brushstroke. I once told her it was a personal treasure to keep, but now I had altered the painting and sold it to her parents. I had vanished. Serafina could not reach me. She rushed to grab her old phone, charged it, and turned it on. The result? Hundreds of missed calls and texts from me. Serafina tried calling back, but I did not answer. She searched the university for days but never saw me in any of my classes. She did not see me entering or leaving the dorms, either. Serafina had never officially met my roommates before. Having only seen them from a distance, she could hardly pick them out from thousands of other male students. So, Serafina staked out my dorm building for days, asking random students, until she finally located my roommates. The three guys were just heading out to the cafeteria to grab some food. Laughing and chatting happily, they instantly stopped dead the second they saw her standing there. Their faces turned instantly defensive. "What do you want?" Gideon, being the braver one, demanded aloud. They all recognized her. They had seen her standing right here just a few days ago, waiting around to pick up Alaric. So they deliberately ignored her. Serafina spoke up first, asking what Callahan had been up to lately. Dorian let out a sharp scoff and mocked her. "Why is Alaric's girlfriend suddenly coming around to worry about our Callahan? If word of this gets out, his reputation will be ruined. How is our boy Callahan supposed to show his face?" The other two guys quickly backed away. After all, Serafina had personally picked Alaric up multiple times. Besides, Alaric had been handing out those expensive French candies she brought back to their classmates. He shamelessly bragged that she was his own girl, making the entire campus believe they were actually dating. Poor Callahan. What a total fool. 3 years of quiet devotion could not even touch Alaric's 2-week stunt. Talk about a dirty move. Now Callahan is treated like a completely forgotten ex. Frowning deeply, Serafina tries to clear things up, insisting she has absolutely nothing to do with Alaric. She tells them Callahan is her only boyfriend, but they scoff, calling him pathetic for letting her coddle another man. Gideon bravely throws out a sarcastic jab, having actually accepted those French milk candies too. Honestly disgusting. Everyone in their department got some, making people think they were actual wedding treats. They refuse to waste time. Not anymore. Then they roll their eyes as they pass her. Sure, she is rich and gorgeous, but bad character is still bad character. I had been gone for 3 full days. At 4 a.m., deep in the city, I dragged the final liquor box inside. Neat tables, clean counters. I tidy up everything before I prepare to head out. Even at 4 a.m., the streets were glowing. I jogged the whole way to reach the art studio by 5:30. Having taken a 1-month leave of absence from college, I spent my entire day substitute teaching here, and at 8 p.m., my second shift started. I headed to a downtown bar to handle heavy kitchen lifting. With all this grinding, I could bring in nearly $3,000. No watch, no stigma. I absolutely must return it to Serafina, no matter what. If Mrs. Sterling wanted, I would even return the $15,000 for the painting. By 5:30 a.m., the dorms were still locked. Lately, I had been crashing inside ATM lobbies near the art studio. Tonight was no different. I slept on the floor. I only got 1 day off a week from teaching. If I could survive today, tomorrow I would sleep in my own bed. My alarm blasted right on schedule at 7:30 a.m. I woke up and grabbed 3 cheap steamed buns to fill my empty stomach. After borrowing some tap water from a local shop owner to splash my face, I rushed right back to the studio. Meanwhile, Serafina had completely lost track of me. My loyal roommates refused to tell her a single thing. No replies. Not even a shadow. She stakes out my dorm, but I never show. Finally, she cornered my department head and discovered that something happened to my brother, forcing me to take a month off to care for him. She begged him for my hometown address and immediately drove all the way out there herself. The place was incredibly rundown, filled with dingy red brick apartment buildings that stretched 6 stories high. You could easily smell the sickening stench of heavy mildew from half a block away. Serafina tried to brace herself but couldn't take another step forward. This was the old home father's shoe left behind, but my stepbrother had taken it over. She originally planned on helping me reclaim it, but wanting to hide her wealthy identity stopped her. Instead, she sat in her car, lighting a mosquito coil and staring blankly at the family window. A neighbor asks Finnegan why he is grocery shopping alone and where his brother is. The kid is covered in bruises, with a broken foot and arm. He barely manages to limp forward on crutches. Grip tight, Serafina literally squeezes the glowing mosquito coil. Finnegan smiles warmly and tells a lie, claiming his brother is too busy with schoolwork to visit, showing zero sadness. The neighbor sighs deeply, feeling terrible about their struggles, and tells the kid to study hard so he can repay his brother's kindness someday. He says it is incredibly rare for a student to selflessly pay off a $30,000 debt. With a serious nod, the boy solemnly promises that he will never forget what his brother did. As they walk inside, leaving her view, Serafina suddenly feels a massive, heavy weight pressing on her heart. She absolutely hated my stepbrother and wanted me to stay as far away from him as possible. Coupled with her fury over the missing watch, that was why she refused to lend me the $15,000. She wanted to prove my stepbrother could not squeeze any more cash out of me, but she overlooked something huge. If I was desperate enough to ask her for money, I was definitely going to protect my stepbrother. And look at this right now. Callahan is not at school or home, but working himself to the bone in some dark corner. But where is he? The neighbor who helped Finnegan walks back down to head home. Serafina scrambled out of her car and ran inside. She was desperate, but the bar was absolutely packed today. I spent the entire night carrying heavy crates of liquor back and forth, dragging my feet without a single second of rest. From the glass railing on the VIP floor, Serafina leaned over, her eyes scanning the massive crowd downstairs. Her friend Sylvia teased, asking if she saw any cute guys she wanted to invite up for a chat. Sylvia planned this party, and she could tell Serafina was totally distracted by the scene below. Usually, Serafina would just sit alone, drinking her gloomy wine without looking at anyone. But tonight, her eyes were glued to the crowd. Sylvia figured she had broken up with her guy. So she invited Alaric and his popular frat friends, but Serafina did not give them a single glance. She just stared coldly at the young staff members downstairs. This VIP venue was incredibly expensive. If a handsome young guy was willing to play along, he could easily make thousands in one night, work a few big tables, and pulling in tens of thousands of dollars was an absolute breeze. Of course, they had to be highly attractive and charming. But honestly, she only cared about where her idiot was right now. He would rather work himself to death than take that kind of fast money. The thought made her stomach turn. How did I get $30,000 to pay off my brother's debt, especially since I had stopped going to class? Did I meet someone else who treated me well and paid off my debt? I always repaid any kindness tenfold. If so, I would only care about that person. The very thought absolutely terrified her. She was terrified I was going down a dark path and suffering, and even more scared that someone else was helping me. The VIP party was getting wilder by the minute, but Serafina still did not spare a single glance for Alaric. Gaining some courage, Alaric finally approached her, asking why she looked so unhappy tonight. He begged her to tell him what was wrong so he could help. He was trying desperately to get closer to her. But check this out, she completely ignores him, her eyes locked on a figure near the bar. The boy was wearing the staff's black shirt, weaving quickly through the massive crowd. He was working tirelessly to deliver heavy drinks. Could it actually be him? One of the frat guys joked that she was going to make her boyfriend sleep in the guest room tonight. Another friend quickly joined in with some more light teasing. Alaric's face turned bright red, and he quickly looked down, but Serafina did not even notice. Her gaze remained locked. That boy looked so much like him, but the flashing strobe lights made it impossible to be sure. She just could not see his build clearly. After hauling heavy crates back and forth, my back was in absolute agony. I slipped under the bar to get a quick break, but the bartender immediately called my name. he called out Callahan. The rich VIPs upstairs wanted some entertainment, asking if you wanted to go up. That floor was strictly for high rollers. Going up meant serious cash and tips. In my 2 weeks working here, I had seen plenty of guys come down from that floor clutching thick stacks of money. The lucky ones made thousands. But I just shook my head, telling him I do not even know how to fake a smile. That fast money was not for me. After saying that, I turned around and headed back to help in the kitchen. The bartender did not push it. He knew this college kid was totally different from the hosts. Honestly, if the VIPs had not specifically requested a new face, he would not have even brought it up. I had a smart look, but I was so thin, I looked totally emaciated. The quiet, unwavering conviction in my eyes was the last thing you would expect in a shady place like this, but I held my ground. When I first applied, I made it extremely clear that I would not do that kind of hosting work. I worked harder hauling heavy boxes than any of the veteran staff. I even kept my books in the back, studying whenever I got a free second. The kitchen staff looked out for me, always prepping some fresh fruit as a midnight snack whenever I was working back there. Since we only served drinks, there was barely any real food. The bartender genuinely felt sorry for me. He assumed I was just some poor kid forced by a sudden tragedy to work in this club. He knew I was not meant to stay. I sat back down to study, but watch this suddenly. The printed words completely blur and go blank. My vision went completely pitch black. I collapsed back against the wall and fainted. Meanwhile, up on the second floor, a row of male models stood waiting. They had every body type, lean, muscular, and charming. It was basically a menu for the wealthy guests. But the guy Serafina actually had her eyes on was nowhere in sight. Sylvia tried tracking down the manager, but the guy just did not care and flat out refused to show. Quite a tough guy, she laughed. A guy not obsessed with cash? Pretty rare here. Meanwhile, when a pack of professional male models strolls in, Alaric and his frat buddies feel incredibly awkward. They were wealthy, highly educated young heirs. How could they possibly sit around with people like this? Alaric looked completely pathetic, tugging at Serafina's sleeve and whining that he did not feel well at all. He begged to leave, but Serafina was already highly annoyed because she could not find me. On top of that, everyone kept assuming she and Alaric were actually a couple. Pure chaos. Her mind was a total mess. She called her driver, left her car keys behind, and stood up to walk out completely alone. If her mother had not forced her to watch over him, she would not care about him at all. She told him she was only saving his face this once. Next time anyone talks about their relationship, she will set the record straight herself. Alaric looked so hurt he was about to burst into tears. His roommates exchanged pretty confused looks. Weren't these two supposed to be a happy boyfriend and girlfriend? Why was she leaving them stranded? Back in the warehouse, someone shook me awake, shouting that the guests needed more booze. They told me to hurry up and haul it over. Rubbing my aching temples, I stood up, grabbed a heavy crate of beer, and headed to the bar. Serafina walked back to the west gate of the university, right when classes were letting out for the day. Happy couples strolled out of the campus hand in hand, chatting happily about what to grab for dinner. Watching them quietly, a sharp wave of envy hit her heart. They were just so completely stuck together like glue. Even if most would break up by graduation, she really envied them right now. Walking in from the gate, Serafina soon arrived right outside my dorm building. Nearby students were whispering and murmuring about her being Alaric's girlfriend. Guilt absolutely consumed Serafina here, because we all know exactly what happens if he finds out. What if he saw them together, got completely jealous, misunderstood everything, and was now actively avoiding her? Were they really going to break up like this? With all her calls and texts completely ignored, she did not even have the courage to look at their old messages. No texts. She did not even dare to message him anymore. She was terrified of seeing that dreaded red exclamation mark showing she was blocked. She imagined him saying he did not care since she was out laughing with someone else, telling her to never look for him again. Right then, another couple walked past her. The girl scrambled to keep up, begging him and crying that it was absolutely nothing. She explained he only asked about her jacket brand for his own girlfriend, but the boy yelled back that he did not believe her. He accused her of smiling at another guy and not loving him anymore, his voice fading away. Hearing this, Serafina suddenly panicked. She resolved to find me and explain everything about Alaric. They simply could not just cut ties like this. Absolutely not. Meanwhile, I walked out to the back alley to dump the trash, hearing someone screaming at the top of their lungs nearby. It sounded like some guy wanted to break up, while a girl was crying and begging him to stay. She was screaming, demanding to know if he had another woman. She kept causing a massive scene, but I just listened with cold indifference. Normally, I would not even give this drama a second look, but today, things felt completely off because the guy was nowhere around. It was a sad one-woman show, with her laughing and crying like she was totally wasted. She stumbled, tripped, crawled back up, and drifted deeper into the dark alley like a ghost. Back in the kitchen, I noticed some pretty weird stains on my shirt. I went to the bathroom to wash it, but the water ran crimson red. That girl must have lightly brushed against me in the alley. The stain was actual blood from her body. She was bleeding heavily. This is where things take a dark turn. That poor girl had actually lost all hope and cut her wrists. The bar called an ambulance, making me escort this bleeding girl straight to the brightly lit hospital. Down in the emergency room, she kept thrashing around and refusing to cooperate. With no other choice, the doctor gave her a shot to quiet her down. Now, she just lay in the hospital bed, her blank eyes staring straight up at the blinding white ceiling light. Sitting on the sofa near her, I wondered how rich people got it so easy. A private luxury suite with its own bathroom, giant floor-to-ceiling windows, and a massive guest bed to sleep on. I quietly asked if she could contact her family, explaining that I had work early tomorrow and needed to leave soon. But she did not even hear my voice, so I just turned off the lights. Staring at bright lights is pretty bad for the eyes anyway. Switching off the lamp, I lay down near her bed as time ticked by. The girl still had not closed her eyes, asking why I was staying silent. Her weak voice echoed in the room, trembling right on the edge of a breakdown, making me groggily ask what she wanted me to say. Realizing she wanted comfort, I paused for a long moment before admitting I was pretty bad with words. I do not know how to say sweet things or comfort people, and honestly, my life is a bit more miserable than yours. You have money and a nice hospital room to recover in, while I do not even know where my next cheap meal is coming from. Lies. She did not believe me, calling me broke. Sure, young people struggled, but a single guy working at that busy bar should easily be able to feed himself. She kept arguing that with my looks, I could easily find a rich girlfriend instead of living in such a tragic, broke state. I did not feel like talking, but the quiet darkness made me desperately need an outlet to pour my heart out. So I told her everything. From my freshman year in college when my dad and stepmom suddenly died in a terrible accident, to finding her trying to end her life. Stolen. My stepmother's brother took the only house my father left behind. I survived college entirely on scholarships and grueling part-time jobs, and then, I eventually met a girl who became my girlfriend. One day, she got into a brutal car crash, and I luckily happened to pass by and save her. She spent the first 2 years recovering in the hospital, forcing us to borrow cash and work endless shifts to pay it off. Early this year, she told me the massive debt was finally cleared, making me think our lives would finally start getting better. And of course, life did not get any better, prompting the girl to ask what on earth happened next. I saw her at a mall spending $100,000 on another boy, right after I had haggled over pennies for a chicken to feed her. Unbelievably, it was my birthday, and she gave me some cheap promotional trash that the rich boy did not even want from his shopping spree. No money. My finances were tight, and I desperately needed quick cash. When I got detained at the local police station and asked her to help, she literally told me to go beg outside. Talk about absolute betrayal. Later, I found out she actually came from an incredibly prominent, wealthy family, luxury cars, worth millions, while dating a guy from our department. Serafina knew all about Alaric since I mentioned him constantly, and he was too rich to ever need a scholarship. His daily spending equaled the price of luxury shoes. While losing my scholarship meant I would have to drop out. Best case scenario, I would end up just like this, working myself to death with extra jobs, but working so much meant falling behind in classes, making my essential scholarship almost impossible to keep. It was a brutal, endless cycle. Hard labor, exhausting physical jobs that required absolutely zero brain power. I could study while working. When she asked why I did not sound sad, I wondered what good crying would do when it hurts. My massive debts will not magically decrease just because I cry. Besides, sadness is for others, and nobody is watching me. What is the point of being broken-hearted? 3 years together, and Serafina still did not trust my basic character. Beg for pity? No way. Debt cured my despair, and her heart was freezing cold. I refused to beg for her affection. My only goal now was to clear my debts and start my life over. The girl angrily asked why on earth I had not dumped her yet. I just silently shook my head in response. If you are wondering why I stayed, here is the sad, simple truth behind my foolishness. She was the only stranger who ever stood by me, so I wanted to wait a bit longer, hoping everyone else was lying about her. I needed to hear the truth from her own mouth and ask if she truly cared so much about that watch. She understood. It hit her that she was foolishly chasing her ex too. What right did she have to judge my life? She softly told me to move on because I was truly amazing. She promised me that better girls were waiting in my future. I did not judge her past mistakes and just hoped my tragic story comforted her. I have already moved on and accepted my fate, and I never cared about her family wealth anyway. Having a clean conscience is enough. If my own father could abandon me so easily, why would I expect love or cash from anyone else? Not mine. Other people's things always stay theirs. Controlled by them? I said with a faint smile. My pain was real, but my acceptance was real too. But from that tragic day on, Serafina had planted weeds of doubt in my soul, growing wild and utterly destroying my peace of mind. I did not bring up a breakup, but not because I feared losing all my past emotional investments. He wanted to pull these weeds out by the roots to destroy them completely. This was the debt Serafina owed him. He had to become sharp and focused again, not this broken, scarred mess. Then he looks at the girl. Miss, you are only a sophomore. You get discharged tomorrow. Just go home and apologize to your parents. They are still waiting for you with open arms. Here is the crazy part: she spilled some pretty massive secrets when she and her boyfriend caused that scene in the alley. Seriously, it is not that complicated. If you truly hate the guy, go ahead and sue him for seducing a minor. He will end up in prison for sure. Either way, that is far better than slicing your own wrist. You used a broken bottle to slice your skin. Aside from the pain, it only leaves faint scars. His fault, not yours. The young girl stays completely quiet, but then, soft, painful sobs start to fill the room. My parents will never forgive me, she weeps. I did so many horrible things to them for that guy. But family ties do not break overnight. She once believed her dad hated her and that life was totally pointless. But recently, she learned that to bring his kid back and close deals with business partners, his dad had paid the stepmother a massive sum. He spared his son from any debt by transferring the family house. When Finnegan got hurt, Officer Chen brought in his uncle to uncover the full truth. He realized just how desperately this older man had struggled alone to bring his son back home. Sadly, things did not work out. Lacking strength, he only found failure. All he could do was teach young Finnegan a vital lesson. Since the boy followed him, he belonged to the shoe family. And a shoe man must always protect his own blood. That is why Finnegan chose brutal pain over selling the house. Without going back, he would never have uncovered this. Hey little brother, are you asleep? A soft voice asks. Callahan snaps out of his deep thoughts and smiles warmly. Honestly, things are not all bad. Some pretty good things have actually happened. Tonight, he saved a life while working. And thanks to his sister, he got a warm bed instead of freezing inside an ATM booth. He really has to thank her. Those loud ATM machines are always telling people to make transactions. It gets incredibly noisy. He could never rest properly. Constantly worried someone would walk in and kick him out. The saved girl is Alora. At 5 a.m., she desperately calls her childhood best friend. The friend rushes over in a total panic. Callahan is just finishing washing up to leave when he spots a familiar face. Callahan, you were the one who saved Alora, Lysander blurts out, completely shocked to see him walk out of the bathroom. Callahan gives a simple nod. Then, he pulls out his phone to add Alora as a friend on WeChat. He looks at her and says, if a person is truly determined to throw their life away, you can never stop them. But if your life feels completely worthless, why not take a look at my world instead? After surviving absolute hell, just having food to eat and staying alive is his greatest joy. He ignores Lysander completely. He stands up to leave, but the very moment he opens the door, he runs straight into Serafina. Callahan, why are you here? She gasps. Serafina never expected to be dragged out of bed before dawn just to drive her brother to the hospital for his sick friend. Talk about an insane twist, the very man she was desperately hunting down is standing right here. Sis, it was actually Callahan who saved Alora. I cannot believe we share such a crazy connection, Lysander says, shaking with excitement over this incredible savior. The guy is genuinely amazing. He possesses absolute main character energy. Lysander excitedly briefs his sister, explaining exactly what Alora just told him. She was so devastated she almost ended it all, but thankfully Callahan was passing by. Callahan stays quiet, ignoring their chatter. Offering only a distant smile, he says he has work to do and walks right past Serafina to make his exit. People say this world is tiny, but it is not usually this small. Even though their social classes are completely worlds apart, they keep running into each other. Serafina ignores the room entirely and quickly chases after him outside. This leaves Alora looking utterly confused, while Lysander is so thrilled he practically wants to scream. Sitting by the bedside, he eagerly brags about Callahan, calling him his sister's incredibly sweet boyfriend. He saved her life once, and after they got together, he completely supported her for 2 whole years. But his sister was a terrible person who deceived him, and now she is paying the price, suffering alone in silence. Your sister's boyfriend, Alora gasps, completely stunned. Alora recognized her instantly. Wasn't she the toxic woman from that tragic story? Meanwhile, Clueless Lysander just nodded along. That is him, and now he saved you too. He is genuinely my hero, rescuing my favorite sister and best friend. This feels like fate. Alora fell silent, debating whether to tell Lysander the harsh truth. Serafina followed me right out of the room, demanding to know what I was doing and why I ignored her calls. Out in the hallway, she grabbed my wrist tightly. I did not act shy or awkward at all. Giving her a casual smile, I explained my new part-time job was keeping me really busy, and they strictly banned using phones during work hours. I claimed I forgot to check my notifications after work, but honestly, I just wanted nothing to do with her. Remembering there was a time she deliberately ignored me, Serafina knew she was in the wrong and quickly dropped the phone topic. Consider us completely even then. But just as she opened her mouth to argue, her eyes locked onto my plain black t-shirt. It was the identical uniform she had spotted on a server at that bar yesterday. She frowned, asking if I was actually working in a bar. So, that familiar shadow on the second floor really was me? I stayed silent, waiting to see what she would say next. Would she criticize me for going to a shady place like that just to make quick cash? Or lecture me that decent guys should not work there because others look down on them? But get this, Serafina stayed totally silent, drowning in her own frustration. She failed to recognize me yesterday. The elevator arrived, and I stepped inside while she followed closely. She asked if I worked there to pay off that $15,000, claiming it was all her fault. She promised to help clear my debt. Staring at me, the only reason she could think of was that $15,000 my brother owed. She knew I already cleared it, assuming I must have borrowed it from someone else. She begged to pay off my roommates today so I would quit, but I told her I did not borrow any cash. I refused to explain further. I was always straightforward, so she knew my no meant exactly that. She begged me to quit that chaotic place, offering to hand over a supplementary credit card for my expenses. She urged me to focus on my painting and stop working, unable to even say the words that she would support me. She had made that promise countless times before, but never once did she actually back it up. Her casual parties cost hundreds of thousands, while her own boyfriend was literally breaking his back, moving heavy crates of alcohol. Her heart was breaking. I did not care. I told her I would not stay long anyway. Quitting now meant giving up my hard-earned wages, so I refused. I really only planned to work through this summer break and then leave. During senior year, I had to focus on painting. Without tuition pressure, I would just substitute teach. Honestly, after working with those students recently, becoming a real art teacher sounded pretty nice. I decided to skip grad school, take the local exams, and head back home to teach. A giant city like this just was not built for a simple guy like me. Serafina pleaded with me to listen. She begged me to quit, promising to fund whatever I wanted, even offering to help me set up my own art studio. She begged me to leave, her heart breaking as she stared at the heavy, dark circles underneath my eyes. My black shirt looked completely loose and baggy on me, as if I had shed so much weight I was losing my frame. I was way too thin to even fill out my clothes. She reached out her arms, desperately wanting to hug me, but I stepped back. She grabbed empty air. I warned her my blood would ruin her expensive clothes. I could never afford to replace something so costly. Just then, the doors opened to the lobby, and I walked straight out. And check this out, she begs to drive me back, making me stop with a bitter, mocking smile on my face. No thanks, Miss Sterling. If I dirty your expensive car, I cannot afford to pay you back. Serafina froze. Completely numb. I ignored her, walking the long distance alone to my bus stop. The bus was scheduled to depart at 7 in the morning. Leaving her car behind, she trailed me quietly and stood nearby, waiting with me. Neither of us uttered a single word during the entire ride. She kept trying to start a conversation, but I shut her out completely and acted like she was invisible, all the way to the school gate. I refused to walk inside with her. After all, the whole campus was already gossiping about Serafina and Alaric dating. Walking beside her while she was dripping in high-end designer clothes would only make things worse. Rumors would drown us. Absolutely ridiculous. What a complete joke. For 3 whole years, we kept our relationship a total secret, constantly sneaking around, just because I was terrified that one single rumor would make me look like the third wheel in my own life. Serafina did not dare to push her luck. She just waited back at the west gate, while I quietly headed straight to my dorm. My roommates were still fast asleep. I quickly changed, threw my dirty clothes in the wash, and hung them up to dry. I took a long detour through the east gate just to reach the art studio unnoticed. Then, at 8 p.m. sharp, I showed up at the bar for my shift. I expected Serafina to follow me, but finding her already waiting there? That was a shock. Tonight, Serafina booked the entire venue. No other guests allowed, and absolutely no music playing. The entire bar was dead silent, and they kept the bright house lights fully on, leaving me with absolutely nothing to do. Fortunately, The kitchen crew sliced up some fruit for me, so I happily spent my free time sitting in the back reading my world art history textbook. Final exams were right around the corner, so I had to study every single chance I got. Look, how Serafina chooses to blow her massive fortune is her business. But I completely overlooked one major detail. Buying out the entire place made her the ultimate VIP tonight. Whatever she wanted, my boss was going to make sure she got. The moment the boss realized Serafina was only here for me, he came running to the back and practically begged me to go out front. He told me, Callahan, the VIP out front is asking for you, and the big boss wants you there. Completely helpless, I stood up. When you work for someone else, you have to follow orders. As I walked past the other guys, all their whispering stopped instantly, and their eyes locked on me. I ignored their strange glares. No way was I going to call it jealousy. There was no room for those thoughts anyway. The main hall was blindingly bright, dead silent, and Serafina sat completely alone right in the middle. A single glass of plain water sat on her table. Her elite upbringing and years of commanding power wrapped her in a heavy aura of cold, unapproachable arrogance. I had never seen this cold, distant side of Serafina before. On his way out, my boss gave me a look, warning me to seize this chance. You see, rich girls chasing handsome guys happens all the time. But spending over $100,000 to clear out the venue? That is absolutely insane. I calmly asked what Miss Sterling needed from me. Serafina looked incredibly sad, replying that she just wanted to talk. I could not believe she was acting so humble now. Honestly, she brought this entirely on herself. I just smiled and told her that since she is the customer, of course we can talk. Serafina suddenly stood up, grabbed my hand, and dragged me toward the stairs, saying we should go up to the second floor. She did not want to ruin the boss's business. My boss immediately took the hint, posting guards on the stairs and letting the bouncers reopen the front doors. Pure quiet upstairs, absolute noise below. This was my first time ever on the second floor. The design here was way more luxurious than downstairs, and the soundproofing was top tier. With the door firmly shut, the loud outside world completely vanished. Looking incredibly pitiful, Serafina whispered that she had waited for me at the gate all day. She kept waiting and waiting, but I never showed up. That was when I finally realized how she had spent her entire afternoon, desperately looking for me. Thinking I was just exhausted, she actually made lunch for me and walked all the way to my dorm building. She even begged one of my classmates to bring it up to my room, only to learn I had already left for work early that morning. I was working constantly, taking on way more than just this night shift, which made Serafina feel terribly guilty. Any normal person would feel terrible watching their partner run themselves ragged working day and night like that, especially someone with her crazy royal status. Yet I had never taken a single cent from her. Serafina started looking visibly panicky. The perfect apology she had rehearsed 1,000 times completely vanished from her mind. I just sat there in total, unmoving silence. Her guilt only grew. She pleaded with me, Callahan, it is my fault for hiding my identity. I am so incredibly sorry. If you hate me for lying to you, you can scream at me, or throw things. I will take absolutely all of it. Just please do not shut me out or completely disappear. I simply shook my head calmly, telling her that I did not blame her at all. Her wealth and status were hers, anyway. How she chooses to present herself to people is entirely her own choice. My cold detachment broke her heart even more. It sounded exactly like I was cutting all ties. She cried out that she would rather have me hate her. She begged me not to act like our relationship did not matter, pleading that while she would take any punishment, I could not just discard her. They had 3 years of deep history together. Since the day she fell for me, she had never once imagined a world where we would break up. She believed I could not just quietly throw away our history. To her, 3 years of love could not be ruined by one mistake. Looking at her dark, exhausted eyes in the bright light, my heart heavy. I asked her straight up, why did you hide your identity to get close to me? When I was desperately calling you, where were you, what were you doing, and who were you with? Serafina instantly froze, completely speechless. She couldn't answer. Not a chance. One wrong word, and everything would instantly fall apart. Knowing I would never compromise, she quickly shifted her entire strategy. She stepped right in front of me, crouching down to meet my gaze as she pleaded everything in the past was my fault. Callahan, please believe me. I struggled back then too, but I will slowly make it up to you starting now. Let the past go. Okay. Just treat this as starting fresh. No more lies, I promise, and I will listen to you on absolutely everything, if we can just start over. You call all the shots for us from now on, and I won't let you suffer ever again. We still have an endless future ahead of us, but without a real answer. The bitter doubt in my heart refused to fade. Pure disappointment washed over me. All at once, I lost the strength to stand and just slumped backward. She was still hiding things, completely insincere. But right as I fell, Serafina caught me with incredibly quick reflexes. I collapsed, right into her delicate embrace. Only then did Serafina feel at ease. She had felt insecure from the very start of our relationship, obsessing over those shoes while dreading the moment I discovered her true identity. Then, listening to Beatrix's awful advice, she tried to force herself to temporarily forget about me and seek out other options. But she was mostly terrified of me seeing through her, hiding a massive aching emptiness beneath all that insecurity. Some random art student like Alaric could never fill that void. A guy whose dreams were crushed by poverty was never worthy of her heart. Only I was. I blended an artist's romantic soul with pure resilience. Temptations were absolutely everywhere in this world. Yet someone as rare as me? Hard to find. We survived the worst together, so we absolutely had to share the good times ahead. A woman in Serafina's position knew this better than anyone. A guy like me was a once-in-a-lifetime find. Most people never meet someone like that. There was absolutely no way she was letting me go to anyone else. Whispering softly, Serafina promised she would treat me so well, and that we would never, ever separate again, as she held me in a fierce, desperate hug. The smell of paint. It clung to my body, wrapping around her. Serafina let out a contented sigh, gently kissing my forehead, though she clearly wanted more than just that. Her fingers carefully traced my brow and eyes, slowly moving downward. I didn't fight her off, but I didn't pull her close either. I just let her pull me in, getting pressed back against the sofa as she begged me to quit and go home. My collarbones stood out sharply, and through the neck of my black shirt, the hollow outlines of my ribs were painfully clear. I was practically starved to the bone, all because of her. And seeing this sent a sharp, agonizing twist through her heart. I snapped back, pushed her away, stood up to straighten my clothes, and told her I couldn't quit. Heading downstairs, I heard Serafina desperately call out my name behind me. I coldly reminded her that she had just promised to listen to me, forcing her to stay quiet and follow me down. Fine, if I insisted on being stubborn, she would let me. She would just work on changing my mind every single day. Eventually, the day would come when I'd want to quit. Downstairs, the first wave of guests had already started arriving. With the music absolutely blasting, Serafina followed me into the back kitchen, rolled up her sleeves, and started carrying heavy crates. Those boxes were heavy, but she gritted her teeth, realizing I had survived 3 years of doing exactly this kind of labor. Her guilt deepened, making her even more determined to get me out of here. Meanwhile, the bar boss watched this wealthy customer act like an employee. I just sat there, on a kitchen stool, quietly reading a book. Talk about a complete role reversal. These rich heiresses really operate on a completely different level of weird. Once we finally closed up for the night, Serafina went to bring the car around. The boss pulled me into his office, advising me to play nice with Serafina so I could stop doing hard labor. Life is tough, Callahan, so play your cards right. Take this chance to build yourself a real future, and learn from Sebastian. Worried I was too stubborn to get it, he explicitly brought up Sebastian, who was a legendary figure around this place. I heard his legendary stories the very day I started here, the level-headed college kid. He made bank, walked away from the wealthy girls chasing him, refused to be a pampered pet taking their abuse, and left the country for grad school. I got the point. Sebastian was overseas now, married to a highly respected scientific researcher with serious social status. Just as I stepped out, a notification buzzed on my phone, a transfer of $25,000 from finance. Serafina pulled up, noticing my worried frown. Asking what was wrong, I just shook my head, slid the phone into my pocket, and got into the passenger seat. She wasn't behind the wheel of that Maybach this time. I didn't even recognize this new ride. But it definitely wasn't that cheap 20 grand car she always talked about. It was a flashy red Porsche. She drove straight into Yeyun Academy. Without stopping, Serafina headed right down into the parking garage, claiming it was already too late tonight. Tomorrow, she wanted to show me around the area, saying she was finally planning to return that cheap rented apartment. She said we would live here after graduation. I just stared outside, silent. Stepping out into the underground garage, I spotted the Maybach parked right there. No doubt about it, she actually lived here. That tiny rented apartment was just a show. She probably only stayed there when I visited, leaving the moment I was gone. The elevator took us straight up. A massive penthouse with 3 private elevators. Serafina opened the door and handed me some slippers. They were light blue with a cartoon pattern and a huge designer logo. They matched her own pink pair. I looked at them and asked coldly if anyone else had ever worn these shoes before. The design immediately made me think of Alaric. Who knows? Maybe Alaric spent those last few days wearing these exact shoes. Living right here. Mistaking my coldness for jealousy, Serafina smiled. She assured me no other man had ever been here, and everything was for me. She pulled me toward the master bedroom and right into a massive walk-in closet, the motion sensor lights automatically flicking on. The display cases inside were packed to the brim with designer clothes, luxury shoes, and expensive watches, all meticulously organized. She told me they were all for me, Callahan. A few days ago, when she decided to focus entirely on me, she arranged all this, expecting me to love it. Serafina stood on her tiptoes and kissed my cheek. She apologized again, saying she felt terrible for making me suffer in the past, and now she wanted to make it up to me with all this wealth. Apparently, Lysander was the one behind this collection. Whenever trendy new men's items dropped, he was the first to know. Then she would extort him into buying them. The accessories gleamed under the soft lights, showing off their luxury-like items in a fancy store window. I picked up one of the watches to examine it closely. It was the exact limited edition piece I saw Beatrix wearing. Seeing me stare at it, Serafina slid it onto my wrist, telling me she bought this watch specifically for me. She claimed she bought it the very day it dropped, knowing it would look absolutely great on my wrist. Now that I was wearing it, it did look great, but I felt absolutely nothing. I had no interest in appreciating her expensive toys. I yawned and told her I was sleepy and needed to wake up early. Even with her driving, I still had to be up by 7 a.m. It was already 2 a.m., leaving very little time to sleep. Serafina nodded, realizing I still had work tomorrow morning. She grabbed some pajamas for me from the closet and set me up to sleep in the massive master bedroom, while she retreated to the guest room. We had just made some progress, and she knew she couldn't rush things now. I took off the watch and placed it back, looking around. Pure luxury seeped from every corner, and the bathroom was literally larger than my entire old house. The bathtub faced a stunning, completely unobstructed river view right outside the window. Across the water, colorful neon lights painted the landmark buildings. Honestly, I didn't even know how to use the high-tech shower. And get this, no hot water came out no matter how I turned it, so searching online for instructions suddenly revealed its insane price tag. The bed was way too soft. The sheets were so outrageously expensive that I couldn't even fall asleep. I rolled off the soft mattress and lay directly on the floor, surrounded by crazy luxury and what felt like stacks of cash everywhere. Deep bitterness washed over me. Because of her lies, I had worked myself to the bone like a slave for 3 whole years. Was this real compensation? Absolutely not. Serafina was completely unforgivable. The next morning at 6:30, she called for me outside my door. Once I stepped out, breakfast was already waiting on the dining table. Coming out of the kitchen, Serafina frowned at me, asking why I was still wearing yesterday's clothes and if I disliked the new closet. She had arranged brand new clothes for me, so why was I wearing a tattered old shirt? I just shook my head. I told her I was heading to the art studio, which is full of pencils and wet paint, so this shirt wouldn't show dirt easily. One wrong move smears paint, which is hard to wash off. I only washed this shirt yesterday. Luckily, it dried in time for this morning. Those fancy t-shirts in her closet just screamed rich young master to me. The cheapest one cost thousands, which was not for me. In this house, anything I used might require payback in equal cash value later. I simply didn't want to add to my debts. After breakfast, she dropped me at the studio before heading to her company. Surprisingly, Meredith, who normally ignored me, walked right over to talk. She asked if that was my girlfriend, not beating around the bush as she pointed out the window towards Serafina's car. I handed a paintbrush back to my student, saying, temporarily, yes. That one word carried a lot of weight. Meredith already knew a pretty decent amount about my situation. She assumed we broke up, but clearly, we still had unfinished business. She quickly changed the topic. Free teaching exams are coming up later this year, she said, asking if I wanted to try. Honestly, I only got this job through a professor's favor. If I wanted to keep teaching after my senior year, getting those official credentials was absolutely my only real option. Without them, I would never pass the state inspections. It would get me fired and totally ruin her studio. Thanks for looking out for me, senior, I replied softly. I am already hitting the books and preparing for the upcoming exams later this year. My plan was to keep learning from you while in the city, making my intentions to stay crystal clear. She just nodded, letting it drop to check on others. I could not go home yet, since the city paid way better. I wanted to save money while I was young. Then, I would just head back home to teach art. Being foolish and honest, I could never be like Sebastian. I just wanted a simple, stable future. No more scraping by, and no need for crazy riches. Then, right at noon, Serafina called to treat me to lunch. I ignored her. Since she was stuck at work, she actually sent her family nanny to drop food off at the studio. Knowing she would hunt me down there, I quickly asked Meredith for some time off and got out of there. I grabbed 2 cheap steamed buns from the campus cafeteria and headed back to my empty dorm room to eat. The room was empty because my roommates went out for a nice meal, but I barely took 2 bites before they burst in. Gideon walked over and dropped a plastic takeout box right onto my cluttered desk. Before I could say no, Beatrix spoke up in her usual snobby voice, calling it just today's leftovers. She mocked me for looking pathetic, but Silas quickly whispered to ignore her because they barely touched the food. He promised the container was clean. Inside was spicy beef, mostly veggies, but still looked pretty good. I did not argue. I just grabbed my chopsticks and dug in. Behind my back, the boys flashed a quiet victory sign. They wanted to buy me a fresh plate, but Beatrix stopped them. She knew my stubborn, broke boy pride would make me insist on paying them back if it was a brand new meal. So, they gave me leftovers instead, and I actually accepted them. The guys stared at her in absolute awe. Beatrix just scoffed, rolling her eyes as she did her makeup. "Look at the weird pride of this broke ghost," she sneered, preferring to eat someone's discarded beef. But get this, as I ate down to the bottom, a pile of fresh beef was hidden underneath, making me freeze. I pretended not to notice, keeping my head down and eating, when suddenly, half a bag of milk candies was tossed in front of me with a clatter. Beatrix scoffed from behind, warning me not to misunderstand her. That dumb shopkeeper mixed all the flavors together in one bag, and we already took the ones we liked. The rest are just gross. Nobody here wants them, so take them. I really do not need you getting low blood sugar and fainting, making everyone think we bully you. I kept my back turned and did not say thanks, but the beef was incredibly delicious. Meanwhile, my boss at the bar had been going through absolute torture lately. Sure, he was happy. His wealthy VIP was coming in every night, but she was literally in the back kitchen trying to flirt with a guy. If you were that obsessed with him, just buy him clothes, shoes, and watches. Shower him with expensive gifts. Otherwise, you have to buy him a car or a house, and treat him to nice restaurants with a gorgeous view. Whisper some sweet things, hand over a shiny credit card, and let him swipe to his heart's content. That is how you win a guy over. So, what is the point of running over here to work his shifts? The wildest part was that I actually dared to order this rich heiress to carry heavy boxes. How could I sit there so peacefully reading a book? Did I not know who she was? Or was I playing hard to get? With an heiress chasing me like this, if I just married her, I would never have to work again. My boss wondered if he misjudged me. Maybe I was actually a smooth player acting like prey to catch the hunter. That is a classic rule. After years in the nightlife industry, there was absolutely nothing he had not seen. But someone working their crush's shift to woo them was a first. The boss could only sigh at the generation gap. The old bar owner just couldn't wrap his head around how young folks date nowadays. If the wealthy heiress wanted to play games, he'd let her. He figured he'd just turn a blind eye and stay out of their business. Maybe she was just trying to experience real life, and I definitely looked like someone you shouldn't mess with. Who knows, I might actually end up as her man in the future. Rich folks do some pretty wild things for true love these days. A picture-perfect marriage on the surface, while an impossible love remains buried deep in the shadows. The old man had seen plenty of stories like that. He just wondered how long I could actually hold out. Serafina finally finished carrying the heavy booze and slumped next to me, drenched in sweat. Seeing me calmly reading my book made her feel deeply hurt. Back in the day, if she even lifted a finger to help, I'd fuss over her endlessly, asking if she was okay. Now, I barely even acknowledged her presence. Serafina spoke up softly. "Callahan, I finished carrying all of it. You won't even spare me a glance." But in my heart, the resentment still lingered. Lately, I kept refusing her persistent offers to drive me to and from work. I flat out refused to stay at her apartment, and constantly turned down her dinner invitations, using my packed schedule as an easy excuse. Serafina had no clue how long she could keep up this silent punishment. Honestly, who could blame me for holding a serious grudge? Seeing the disappointment in Serafina's eyes, I pulled a wet wipe from the insulated lunchbox she had brought. I gently wiped the sweat from her face and poured her a warm cup of soup to drink. Lately, her family maid prepared all my dinners, and Serafina brought them right to my workplace. It had everything from main courses to fresh fruit, specifically all my personal favorites. In the past, just a glance at this food would have made my mouth water. Now, I didn't even want to look at it. Serafina sat there like an eager, giant puppy waiting for my attention, but my heart remained completely frozen. This was the elite heiress of the Sterling family, not the sweet girlfriend I had spent years loving. Serafina whispered, "Callahan, my friends are waiting outside, so let us go meet them together, okay?" I carried all the bottles. "If you do not believe me, go check the front." Honestly, Cressida had been showing up here every single day lately. She only built up the courage to ask me today. I packed my book into my canvas bag and smiled, saying I was not exactly presentable. I am still in my dusty black work shirt, my hair is a total mess, and my hands are covered in grime. Serafina was actually terrified I would refuse to go. Hearing that was my only excuse, she immediately dragged me upstairs. There was a hotel right above the bar. Serafina swiped a card to unlock a private suite. I was not even shocked, just heading inside to shower, and she followed right after me. Several outfits hung in the room, all featuring the trendy styles favored by young people today. I threw on a clean, sharp outfit and styled my hair. Overall, I looked completely at ease, perfectly channeling that popular, effortless heartthrob aesthetic. On the vanity sat endless bottles of skincare products, all the exact same high-end brand used at Serafina's mansion. Delivered on her orders, likely. Since I never did skincare, I didn't touch them. Serafina stepped out wearing a plush bathrobe, her long, damp hair letting stray water droplets cling to the ends. She wrapped her arms around me from behind, soaking in the quiet peace. To her surprise, I cleaned up much better than she expected. For years, I only used 80-cent packets of cheap baby cream, yet my face remained incredibly smooth and clear. Even tanning in the summer did not require treatments. My skin would just naturally lighten back up within a few days. Seeing my clear skin made Serafina think Lysander was just being overly dramatic whenever he whined about his acne breakouts and skin issues. Later, when the baby cream switched to jars and cost $5, I downgraded to a cheaper, old-school brand for just $2.30. Meanwhile, Lysander was already tag-teaming with his mother to get professional facials at high-end beauty salons. The differences between our lives were endless. I used a simple $1.50 medicated soap for laundry. Back then, Serafina screamed that cheap soap ruined your skin. Even her basic hand soap had to be a luxury imported brand. Serafina compared Alaric's soft fingers to my heavily calloused hands. Talk about a brutal reality check that made her feel like a total monster. She stood on her tiptoes, gently planting a kiss on my bare shoulder. Her saving grace was knowing I still cared, letting her make up for the past. Serafina squeezed me tighter, feeling my prominent bones. Every single detail of my body only fueled her deep guilt. She had practically starved me until I was bone-thin. Wrapped so tightly in her embrace, I could barely even move. I raised my voice, warning Serafina that if she didn't get dressed, I would change back and head downstairs. The power dynamic between us had completely shifted. Terrified of pushing me too far, Serafina instantly let go, scurrying back into the room to slip into a stunning new dress. I finished preparing and stepped out. Seeing me look so incredibly sharp and polished completely broke down the very last of Serafina's emotional defenses. She felt like an absolute monster. Why did she let me struggle in the dirt for so long? I could have easily lived a comfortable life under her protection, yet she let her beloved prince taste the absolute worst of the world. I completely ignored Serafina's emotional vibe and walked to the door. Simple canvas shoes just wouldn't cut it for an upscale outfit like this. There was a pair of shiny leather shoes waiting for me. They went great with my suit. Honestly, they paired beautifully with Serafina's dress, too. Since I was finally meeting her circle, dressing up was a total must. I kept wondering if any old faces would be there. Upstairs we went. The room was quite dark, barely lit enough to see faces. There were only 3 guys, including me, the rest were girls. Before we could even say hello, a loud, teasing voice cut right through. "Well, look who finally brought her man out to meet us." Serafina squeezed my hand and led me to a couch, introducing the speaker as Cressida. Serafina whispered she is older than Cressida, warning me not to take her mischievous words seriously. Percival laughed and chimed in, telling me he has zero filter, and hoping I wouldn't hold any of his dumb jokes against him. I just nodded politely as she introduced everyone. She pointed out Beatrix, her company's art director, and Beatrix's fiancé, Percival, who also works at the same firm. Percival flashed a friendly smile. He looked completely warm and welcoming, but I could definitely spot a sharp, calculating look in his eyes. I easily remembered how Beatrix threw me straight under the bus back at the Sterling anniversary party, right in front of Alaric. Looking back, Alaric's passive-aggressive attitude toward me afterward was almost certainly her fault. Not to mention Alaric's arrogant roommates who had been acting so high and mighty at school lately. I just shook my head. Just clueless kids who haven't faced the real world yet, completely blinded by Percival's endless praise. Following some quick introductions, Serafina finally announced me as her boyfriend, Callahan. Just like that, my entire future is locked in, and Percival is already sweating. God only knows how hard he worked to suck up to Alaric. Now that I was the one holding the crown, his entire effort was completely wasted. Honestly, Alaric was completely useless. He couldn't even keep a woman interested. All that study for nothing. While Cressida kept joking around, Percival quickly switched seats with Beatrix so he could sit right next to me, shoulder to shoulder. In less than 5 minutes, he treated me like his long-lost brother. Since Serafina banned alcohol, he happily poured me juice. Whenever Cressida pushed the jokes a bit too far, Percival smoothly stepped in and playfully shut her down. Between Serafina and Percival, I was completely shielded the whole night. Even the bar staff kept their distance and never bothered us. Sure, Cressida was a bit wild, but she grew up in these high society circles and knew the rules. She had already handled the staff downstairs. Realizing I was a pretty chill guy, Percival eagerly tried to secure our new friendship. He casually asked if I was still a student, wondering which university I attended. I flatly replied that I was an art junior studying oil painting, aiming to shut down any further questions. Instead, Percival grabbed my hand, praising my rough skin as the mark of a truly dedicated artist hard at work with his brush. He swore that just by looking at these hands, he knew I was destined to become a famous painter. I had to laugh at this guy. Seriously, how did he praise Alaric's hands back in the day? Probably called him a genius who creates masterpieces with a single wave, without ever needing to get his hands dirty. Hearing him mention my rough hands made Serafina visibly tense up, but seeing us get along so well, she figured she should tell Beatrix to have Percival take me out to hang out more often. With Percival acting as my wealthy friend, her mind was already painting all sorts of perfect future scenarios. Serafina finally relaxed, pouring drinks and laughing with her friends, while I slowly grew tired of listening to Percival's endless chatter. I excused myself to the restroom. The staff saw me transition from coworker to high-end guest, but nobody made a scene. In a luxury spot like this, overnight glow-ups like mine were practically a daily occurrence. After drying my hands, I stepped out and ran right into a guy in a white shirt, another friend's boyfriend. He had been sitting silently in the corner earlier while Percival was talking my ear off. I asked if he needed something. Slipping some hand cream from his bag, he offered it, explaining it was great for softening rough skin. He promised it would prevent calluses, then added that this specific place had some pretty amazing hand treatment techniques. Then, he handed over a card for a highly exclusive spa club, which I gladly accepted. Smiling, the boy suggested that if going alone felt too awkward, we could always go together, since his number was on the back. I ignored him and stuffed the items into my canvas bag. The party dragged on until nearly midnight, but I didn't touch a single drop. Serafina, on the other hand, was forced to drink pretty heavily. By the time we walked out, she was totally wasted, though she'd already called her driver. She showed up in her incredibly expensive Maybach tonight. The driver, a steady-looking middle-aged man, quietly steered us through the streets. Once the privacy screen went up, Serafina clung to me, softly murmuring my name, Callahan. She was clearly using the alcohol as an excuse to act clingy. I saw right through her but kept quiet, staring at the hand cream Percival gave me, thinking he was slightly better. Sure, sweet talk feels nice. But did he honestly think a cheap tube of hand cream would make me some gullible fool? Like I didn't know, he was just trying to butter me up. He likely knew about me for ages, only playing nice now because Serafina finally made us official. Otherwise, he'd be kissing up to Alaric instead. That hand cream went straight into a parking lot trash can. Maybe I should have hidden it from Serafina, especially since her friend's guy gave it to me, but I tossed it out in the open. I didn't care if she saw. Her driver helped me carry her upstairs while I followed behind, holding her heavy coat. Once we got her settled onto the couch, the driver made sure we were good and headed out, leaving me to deal with her. While I was in the kitchen brewing some hangover soup, Serafina quickly changed and slipped right into my bedroom. By the time I found her in the master bedroom, she was acting like a total brat. She drank the soup, then immediately locked her arms around me. She refused to let me budge, whining until I held her hand tight enough to soothe her. But a deep emptiness still lingered. This holding hands thing? It just wasn't enough for her. Every single time we got close, she held herself back, too terrified to actually let her guard down. The absolute limit was just squeezing my fingers like this. Then she whispered, Callahan, let's take a trip to France. Okay? I want to take you out. She owned a gorgeous rose manor out there. She wanted to escape, give us some beautiful memories, and finally take our relationship to the next level in a romantic paradise. I stayed quiet. Would you really choose pride over a massive fortune? As Serafina slept peacefully beside me, I closed my eyes and forced my pride down. Remember, she's the heiress to an insanely wealthy empire. If I just endure this, I can completely escape my background. I am absolutely terrified of being poor. I refuse to live like that again. With Serafina right here in my arms, a life of absolute luxury and power is within my reach. Come on, Callahan, you can do this. For the money, just give this relationship one more real shot. You've got this. By early June, the heat was rising, and the entire country was bracing for the massive stress of college entrance exams. Finnegan had only 1 week left. Since I'm his legal guardian, I had to head back home to support him. This was my final stretch with Finnegan. Once these exams are over, he is free to live his own life. We'll be totally square. Knowing I had to head back, Serafina had her family maid pack a ton of high-grade, healthy food, then drove me home herself. Finnegan's leg was still busted, but he hobbled right over to greet his rich future sister-in-law. The apartment was still the same rundown place, and the damp, musty smell immediately hit Serafina hard. But she kept her composure, showing her top-tier upbringing. Downstairs, her parked Porsche was turning heads all over the neighborhood. A neighbor uncle who had met her before smiled in relief, whispering that the poor shoe boy had found an amazing wife. Old Shoe can finally rest easy in his grave. Serafina, in a nice dress, helped me carry stuff and scrub the whole place clean. Every single speck of dust was totally gone from the old door frames. Finnegan watched her clean while I prepped lunch in the kitchen. For once, this old, lonely place actually felt like a real home. He didn't have to just dream about a family reunion anymore, though a sudden, quiet loneliness flashed in his eyes. Serafina finished cleaning, completely drenched in sweat. Finnegan pointed out a new shirt I'd bought for her, suggesting she go change. She came out looking totally refreshed. She walked right past Finnegan, stepped into the kitchen, and slid the frosted glass door shut. Finnegan pretended to watch TV, but let's be real, he was eavesdropping on them. The kid was practically acting like a stressed-out single dad at this point. When she stepped inside, I was already braising the ribs, while the bone broth next to it simmered into a rich, milky white. Right next to the stove, fresh green onions and cilantro lay finely chopped. This was my classic comfort food setup. Serafina actually gulped. She had been absolutely starving for a taste of my cooking for ages. Ever since that massive fight over the shoes, I hadn't cooked once. Suddenly, she wrapped her arms around me from behind, breathing in the comforting kitchen aroma on my shirt. She absolutely loved it, sliding her hands under my shirt. Her fingers trace the sweat on my skin. Behave, she whispers, because my brother is right outside. She tickles me, and I nudge her back. Serafina chuckles softly, reaching over to clear the empty plates. She tells me she is finally done with her work. She playfully asks for a little reward, but ends up with just soup. Before eating, she and Finnegan both crush a huge bowl of bone broth. They completely demolish my signature sweet ribs. If she could ignore that nasty mildew smell, Serafina actually finds my brother tolerable. Not that it matters anyway. I am cool with him, so she is too. There is only a week until exams, and she asks Finnegan if he is nervous. Walking into that exam room with a cast on your arm and leg is a total mental nightmare. Finnegan shakes his head. When she asks if he has a dream college in mind, he just shakes his head again. Truth is, he only wants to look at schools with cheap tuition. But with her sitting right there, he is terrified of looking poor and making me lose face. He cannot say it out loud, muttering that it is too early to think about. I step in to smooth things over, saying we can decide after scores are out. His life is his own anyway. He nods. After dinner, he heads to his room to hit the books while Serafina washes dishes in the kitchen. I stand by her, keeping her company while we chat. By noon, she has to leave. It is a 4-hour drive back. And with my brother in the house, we have to keep our distance. I walk her downstairs, and honestly, look at this, she drags me right into her car, completely hidden behind heavily tinted windows. Her eyes light up as she leans back, pouring a week of longing into one heavy kiss. Knowing I will be stuck here for another week, she begs me to take it easy while looking after my brother. Do not overwork yourself. Finnegan needs real food, so do not go cheap on the meals. She slides a card from her wallet and hands it to me. I know you are still mad, she says, but do not starve yourself right now. You two are both way too skinny. If someone tries to bully you with that frail build, how is your brother ever going to defend you? She really wanted to hire a housekeeper to cook for us, but she knows my stubborn pride. I do not want some stranger in our space. I have survived way worse anyway. My limits are incredibly high. When things go sideways, I do not panic or cry for help. I just handle it. Usually, I only talk after the mess is already cleaned up. Serafina has done a ton for me, but taking her cash blindly feels like a massive trap. Tell me, would you trust her at this point? I do not argue and take the card. She smiles, satisfied, leaving a sharp bite on my collarbone. She hangs around forever before she finally drives away. Before she leaves, she tells me to go look at local apartments these next 2 days. She mentions seeing a new luxury high-rise nearby that looks promising. She wants me to pick a place, buy it, and put the title in my name. A little gift for my future. Look, I joke. Your family has a massive business empire while my brother and I are dirt poor. If we got bullied by you, we would just have to take it. Where would we find the guts to fight back? My words are a joke, but laced with a hint of sarcasm. It is the truth, but she does not get mad. Dating her, she says, the cash we spend on gifts could buy a house anyway. This is just what I deserve. It breaks her heart that my dad left this rundown dump to Finnegan. It is filthy and falling apart. The fact that my father left his property to an outsider like Finnegan makes her absolutely furious. Houses in this small town are dirt cheap, costing less than a single bathroom in the big city. She knows how broken down this building is, and she never wants to return. I keep my mouth shut. Since we got back together, my lifestyle has skyrocketed. Buying a home is like buying a toy. But this is her money. For now. I will not touch a dime of it, and I definitely will not go house hunting. She promises to text me when she gets back safe, turning around reluctantly as she walks to the stairs. I watch her car pull out of the neighborhood. A cold breeze blows that awful mildew smell right past me. Smelling it for even a second makes me sick. I turn and race back up the stairs. I collapse onto the bed. The numbness lingering on my tongue is the only proof she was even here. She is tolerating me way more than before, actually listening to my side. Even with my freezing attitude, she is slowly turning into the girl of my dreams. No debt, no stress, and she treats me better than ever. I opened up a shopping app, searching for a watch that matched hers perfectly. Besides that watch, she had also given me $10,000 back then. That was right when my dad and stepmom had their terrible accident. I needed that cash. But now, it was finally time to pay Serafina back. I wanted to clear the air about our past, so neither of us would hold any bitter grudges. Maybe I could finally go back to my old, sincere self. I shouldn't be so paranoid. This time, I truly believed she was reliable. I actually believed a happy future was waiting for me. Meanwhile, Serafina was in a fantastic mood, calling home to say she would be back for dinner. Off the highway, she drove straight home. It was exactly dinner time. She called out, "Mom, Dad, I am back." Her father just gave a cold grunt. Serafina sat up, reaching for an orange to wet her dry throat. But her brother Lysander glared with pure disgust. Lysander frowned, waving his hand in front of his face to block the odor. He told her, "You smell like mold. You stink, so stay away from me." It was probably just the mildew smell from my old house. Serafina looked down. She was still wearing that cheap t-shirt I bought for my own brother. Embarrassed, she quickly ran upstairs to change her clothes. When she came back down, there was only a single bowl waiting at her seat. Just plain water with 2 sad cabbage leaves floating inside. Next to it sat 2 hard-steamed buns. Lysander sneered, "From now on, this is all you deserve to eat in this house. Imagine coming home to this." Serafina was totally baffled. Since she got back, her own brother had not given her one decent look. Her parents ignored her, keeping their heads down. Only Lysander glared at her with pure hatred. "Sis, I am calling you that for the last time. You are not my sister anymore. Just a scumbag woman. This is all you deserve." "Lysander, you are crossing the line," Serafina snapped back, her anger instantly flaring up. How did he have the nerve to talk to her like that? "Why are you yelling at me?" Lysander whimpered, hiding behind his mother with red, tearful eyes. "Mom, today I wanted to thank Brother Callahan, so I went over to his art university to look for him. But I found out my sister treats him like absolute trash. He only eats 1 meal a day, and this is it. Our family is not so poor that we cannot even afford to buy proper food. Why does my sister treat him like this? What absolute nonsense." Serafina gasped out, "How could I ever let him eat garbage like that?" Serafina was in total shock, pointing at the water and floating cabbage leaves with a face full of complete disbelief. "You are still trying to deny it. I brought this exact soup and these buns back from his school. Taste it yourself and see what it is like." Remembering what others said, Lysander pointed furiously at the bowl of soup. "This soup is completely free at the cafeteria, and those cheap buns are 3 for $1. Once they get cold, they turn rock hard. His roommate told me you just add some free salt and vinegar to fill your stomach and stop the hunger." Lysander buried his face in his mother's arms, feeling like he still had not expressed how much Callahan had truly suffered. "Dad, that guy saved my sister's life. He is the ultimate benefactor of our entire family. Even if my sister did not love him, she should never have forced him to suffer this way." And his roommate said that when Callahan had a family emergency and was almost locked up by the police, he called my sister, but she was too busy flirting with Alaric. Talk about cold. She did not care if he lived or died. At least, that was what Beatrix had claimed. Back then, backed into a corner, I had to open my mouth and try to borrow money from him. If Mrs. Sterling had not randomly bought my painting, Beatrix would have been my main creditor. Hearing this, Mr. Sterling finally realized I was the savior who rescued his daughter. He looked at Serafina and asked, "Is what Lysander saying true? Is this really how you treat your boyfriend? Callahan is the kid who carried you to the hospital back then. Did he force you to be with him?" Besides that, Mr. Sterling could not think of a single reason why his daughter would treat her boyfriend so horribly. When his daughter first announced they were dating, Mr. Sterling assumed she genuinely liked the boy. But no matter how great he was, he still was not good enough for his precious daughter, so he never dug into him. But now, putting together everything his son just revealed, there was only one conclusion the father could draw. I must be a shameless, ungrateful gold digger using my past heroics to blackmail Serafina so I could marry into their rich family. That was the only thing that explained his daughter's sudden, cold shift toward me. No, Dad. I pursued him first. He never asked me for anything in return, Serafina stammered, completely blindsided by her brother's shocking words. She could not let her dad misunderstand me. What did he mean by detained? Why did I never tell her? Sure, she was always calculating her options, but she would never let her own boyfriend end up locked in a police cell. Mr. Sterling stared at those two dry, hard buns. Instantly, he completely lost his appetite for the feast on the table. Hearing his wife coddle their spoiled son only made his chest tighten with growing, irritable frustration. The daughter he raised was actually treating a good man like absolute dirt. How was she any different from those cruel, arrogant playboys? Follow me, Mr. Sterling barked, slamming his chopsticks down as he stood up. Pure suffocation. In the next moment, the air in the living room turned incredibly heavy. Sitting on the leather couch, Mr. Sterling looked like a dark storm cloud about to burst. Start talking, he commanded in a dead, quiet voice. Why did you humiliate the very boy who saved your life? I raised you to be a leader, Serafina, not a cruel tyrant. Serafina stood before him, her hands trembling. Her father's disappointment felt like a heavy, physical weight. Dad, you don't get it, she sobbed, her voice cracking. I did not want to do that, but I had to test him. After my car crash 3 years ago, I had Grandpa's gold watch with me. The precious one Grandma gave him. But when I woke up from my coma, it was gone. Then I found the receipt. Callahan sold it to some gold shop for a couple $1,000. She stared at her parents, fully expecting their anger to dissolve into sudden, relieved understanding. Expecting them to realize that Callahan was deeply flawed, she thought her caution was totally justified. Instead, dead silence. The room grew freezing as her mother slowly stood up. Her mother's usually warm eyes stretched wide with absolute horror and disbelief. Serafina, she whispered, her hands and voice trembling. When you had that horrible accident, you carried no ID or phone. You were registered as a nameless Jane Doe. Yes, Serafina replied, completely confused. But Callahan stayed with me. You were fighting for your life in the ICU for a week before we finally found you, her father added, his voice turning dangerously cold. The hospital demanded immediate cash deposits for your surgeries, and the driver who hit you had fled. Who do you think paid those first-week medical bills, Serafina? She instantly freezes, and look at her, the blood completely drains from her pale face. Scattered memories flash through her mind, waking up to find Callahan looking pale, exhausted, and desperately holding her hand. I paid the hospital bills, so do not worry and just focus on resting. He had told her that back then. She assumed he just used savings or borrowed a little cash. He was a broke college freshman raising an orphaned little brother, her mother sobbed. He did not have thousands of dollars lying around to pay for surgeries. Pawning that watch was the only way to save her life, literally trading gold to keep her breathing. This horrifying truth slammed into Serafina like a massive, physical blow. Her legs buckled, and she collapsed onto the expensive rug, gasping wildly for air like she was drowning. To save her. Callahan sold his only treasure to save her, while she looked down on him with hidden disgust. She had watched him starve on stale, cheap buns while she casually threw $100,000 at some other guy just to test him. The whole time she told herself he owed her for that watch, and deserved to rot in absolute poverty. Nothing. He owed her absolutely nothing. She owed him her very life. And her father added coldly as he stood up. Standing up, her father continued when he swallowed his pride to beg you for $15,000 to save his dying brother. You told him to go beg on the streets. I had no idea, Serafina shrieked, hot tears pouring down her face. Believing he was just being greedy, she thought he was finally showing his true, ugly colors. You did not know because you never cared to ask, her father snaps. And honestly, we cannot even blame him for turning his back on her. Never deserving that boy's love, she had completely destroyed it with her own hands, as the next days became a frantic blur. She pulled every string her family had, tracking down the exact gold pawnshop from that old receipt 3 years ago. By some unbelievable miracle, the rare vintage watch had never been melted down. A local collector bought it, so Serafina instantly dropped $300,000 to get it back. She did not care about the money. She only wanted to fix her horrible mistake, driving to Callahan's quiet hometown like a maniac on the afternoon of his brother Finnegan's final exam. Reaching the damp, moldy apartment building, she found his front door completely unlocked. Callahan was inside, packing up a cheap duffel bag. The entire place was spotless, totally stripped of his few remaining things. Callahan, she gasped, Serafina burst through the doorway, panting with eyes swollen from days of non-stop crying. He looked up with a completely blank, calm face. He showed no surprise, no anger, and absolutely no joy. He simply stared at her the way someone looks at a passing stranger on the street. Finnegan finishes his final exam in an hour, Callahan said quietly. We are heading back to the city tonight, so you really did not need to drive all this way. I know the whole truth, Serafina cried out, lunging forward to desperately grab his hands. He calmly stepped backward, leaving her hands to clutch empty air. I know why you sold that gold watch. She wept, pulling a velvet box from her purse. She tells Callahan she bought the heirloom back, knowing he paid her medical bills. She tearfully asks why he let her misunderstand him for 3 whole years, while he silently stares down at the velvet jewelry box. Suddenly, the painful suffocation that had been choking Callahan's heart for weeks completely stops. Every bit of his lingering resentment instantly withers away, turning to ash. He quietly explains that he only wanted to protect her peace while she was recovering. But later on, whenever he tried to bring up their past, she would dodge the topic. And then, she decided to start testing him. Walking over to his desk, he picks up an elegant wooden box and hands it to her. Her hands tremble with intense emotion as she carefully slides it open. Inside is a vintage gold watch, a duplicate of her grandfather's. Next to it sits $10,000. She whispers, asking what this is. He calmly explains that it is the exact money her mother paid him for his painting, combined with the hard-earned wages he made working at the bar. Since he could not find the original watch, he spent days tracking down this matching antique. The $10,000 is the cash she lent him 3 years ago to help his friend Finnegan. Serafina desperately shakes her head, taking a panicked step forward. She cries that he owes her nothing, but he gently corrects her they are completely even now. He stares at this stunning, wealthy heiress standing in his ruined childhood home. For 3 long years, she had been his sole reason to keep fighting and survive. Pure ice, she is just a rich corporate stranger to him now. He confesses that when she recently showered him with luxury in her private penthouse, he tried to convince himself to accept it. He literally told himself to swallow his pride and enjoy the easy wealth. He was just so incredibly exhausted from being poor that he almost chose to play the obedient boyfriend. Her eyes widen in absolute horror. She begs him not to act, declaring her love. But he knows he cannot do it. With a sad smile, he explains that he cannot wear those expensive clothes or sleep in her luxury bed without constantly remembering the days of eating cheap, $1 noodles. He remembers her instantly swiping $100 grand for Alaric while he begged for $15 to eat. He remembers sitting in a cold police station with a bleeding head while she heartlessly told him to go beg on the streets. Realizing how badly she messed up, Serafina drops directly to her knees, desperately clutching the hem of his faded, cheap blue jeans. She begs for a chance to make things right, promising to abandon her entire inheritance for him. She offers to live in this dirty shack. He just tells her to get up. He does not help her up. Since she assumed he was greedy, she disguised herself as a poor girl just to test his absolute limits. Meanwhile, he broke his back to feed her, believing she was starving. He puts his bag over his shoulder. They were both acting, but his act was trying to keep them alive, while her cruel act was only meant to see how much agony he could take before he finally broke. Stepping around her, he heads for the door. The test is officially over. Neither of them has to pretend anymore. Behind him, she screams his name in absolute, agonizing heartbreak. That painful cry echoes through the empty stairs. He does not look back. Stepping outside, the brilliant afternoon sun completely washes over him. The heavy mildew smell is gone, replaced by the clean, fresh scent of sweet summer leaves. Taking a massive breath, he feels a crushing weight he did not even realize he was carrying finally lift away. Fast forward 2 whole years, and we see his entire life has completely turned around in a packed downtown gallery. Right in the center of the exhibition hall hangs a massive, stunning oil painting. Outside the glass, the city flashes with elite neon lights and sports cars. Inside the booth, a tired boy in a worn shirt sleeps soundly against the machine, an art history book resting quietly on his lap. That harsh contrast between cold wealth and quiet, exhausted resilience is truly striking. A refined voice behind him praises the beautiful painting. Turning away, he smiles warmly at Mrs. Sterling. She looks highly elegant as always, with her son Lysander standing right beside her, now a college freshman himself. He politely thanks her for the praise and the excellent venue recommendation. He shares that his teaching studio is thriving. Though he cut ties with Serafina, her mother quietly kept watching over him. She never offered money directly, knowing his strong pride would make him refuse. Instead, she quietly recommended his classes to her wealthy social circle. Through sheer word of mouth and his own sweat, the teaching studio completely flourished. He does not worry about his next meal anymore. Finally, he is stable, independent, and deeply at peace. Staring at the art, Lysander softly mentions his sister did not come, confessing she feels she has no right to stand before his work. Giving a gentle, neutral smile, he just hands the boy a brochure, telling him to focus on midterms. Mrs. Sterling sighed softly, telling me not to waste all my time at exhibitions, her eyes lingering on my calm face. She knew maybe better than anyone else that the kid who once loved her daughter with his entire life was completely gone. In his place stood a man, belonging only to himself. Across the city, up in the massive Yiyun Academy penthouse, Serafina sat alone on her walk-in closet floor. Glass cases still held those limited edition watches, sapphire ties, and custom suits exactly as they were 2 years ago. Not a single item had been touched. On her wrist, she wore a cheap, faded hair tie, the only thing I had ever left behind in her apartment. Look at her, staring through the glass at the glittering city below. She had billions of dollars, massive corporate power, and absolutely everything the world could offer. But in that glass reflection, all she saw was a girl who threw away a priceless treasure just to see if it would break. And it did.